A cataclysm birthed a zombie horde. Transformation was involuntary. The few remaining survivors were relentlessly pursued. Among them, a woman with child. She desperately sought refuge from a menacing predator. Her stalker shadowed her relentlessly. Fate smiled upon her briefly. A couple in the corridor diverted the creature's attention. More transformed humans soon emerged. The man's partner met a gruesome end. He became sustenance for a foul beast. Gore splattered everywhere. Monsters infested the building, ensnared in the carnage. The expectant mother desperately concealed herself. Bitten, her metamorphosis had begun. Time dwindled rapidly. She had to deliver before becoming one of them. She muffled her cries with fabric. She steeled herself for the agony of labor. The screams of the dying reverberated around her. As neighbors were brutally torn apart, her metamorphosis intensified. With unwavering resolve, she fought for survival. Her mission, deliver her child before time expired. 7 years on, the locale remained infested. Within a dwelling, a small girl trembled in a secluded nook. Heavy, monstrous footfalls drew near. Panic-stricken, she stifled her breath. Silence was her only hope. But to no avail, the beast discovered her. In a frantic bid for freedom, she bolted, but was swiftly apprehended. The creature's jaws gaped wide. It poised to strike. Fear not, this grotesque entity meant no harm. It was her mother. A macabre game of hide-and-seek ensued. Indeed, this transformed being was the expectant mother of 7 years past. And the little one is named Chuck Buck, her offspring, against all odds. The transformed mama embraces motherhood with profound gratitude. Chuck Buck persistently pleads for an outdoor adventure. Her mama's denial brings forth tears. She starts to weep, yearning to accompany her mother, seeking Gumdoll. Gumdoll's identity remains a mystery, but enlightenment is imminent. The monstrous parent urges silence. Her daughter's expression melts her resolve. She tenderly cautions about the perils outside. A promise to retrieve Gumdoll is made. A swift return is vowed. Sometime later, the creature mother navigates monster-infested streets. A beast lunges during her trek. With agility, she evades, impaling it with a tendril-like appendage. Immobilized, the monstrosity crumples. The plummeting body awakens her appetite. She partakes in a grisly banquet. The flavor is peculiar, yet satiates her craving. Replete, she spots a pair of survivors. They desperately combat the transformed horrors. One wields fire, the other a firearm. The mother is perplexed. These imbeciles court their own doom. Their late-night venture is sheer folly. The torch's illumination, coupled with the gunfire's report, enrages the beasts. Swiftly she hurls 2 stones. One obliterates the light source. Darkness engulfs them. The other finds its mark, striking the gunman's skull. Having neutralized the marksman, she menacingly advances upon the torchbearer. What unfolds next remains a mystery. Later, the man is seen, breathless and disoriented. It seems he was ambushed by survivors who pilfered his gear and provisions. Seeking sanctuary, he unexpectedly confronts the monstrous matriarch. With lightning speed, she unleashes a tendril. Miraculously, her razor-sharp appendage halts midair, for destiny intervened. This man is Gumdoll, the very individual Chukbak spoke of. The creature embraces him warmly. Gumdoll is utterly terrified. She nearly frightened him to death. He's astonished she not only found him, but also recovered his stolen pack. The thief who stole from Gumdoll finds himself besieged by a monstrous horde. His screams are drowned out by terror. He becomes a grisly meal, meeting a horrific demise. The narrative shifts 7 years prior. A younger Gumdoll wanders listlessly, seeking anything of value. He discovers a beacon in the darkness, a flashlight. Clutching his newfound prize, he contemplates retreat. Further exploration risks encountering horrors. Intrigue prevails. He plunges deeper, traversing the deserted edifice. A sound emanates from a hidden chamber. Gingerly, weapon brandished, light piercing the gloom, he advances. A gruesome sight awaits. A mutilated monstrosity, limbless, writhes upon the ground. Gumdoll is bewildered. Perhaps this creature fell victim to a greater predator. Regardless, danger is palpable. He pivots to flee. Poised for escape, a distant voice echoes from the hallway's depths. He summons his resolve and investigates. Though retreat beckoned, curiosity compelled him onward, and sought another refuge. But a sound piqued his curiosity. a faint whisper, barely audible amidst the cacophony. What he witnessed astonished him. A wire, taut and menacing, aimed for his jugular, terrifying and startling in its own right. But the true horror was a blood-crazed beast, nourishing an infant, an image more disturbing than any nightmare. Their first encounter. Now, in the present, that mother obliterates monsters effortlessly. He's utterly captivated and, frankly, grateful for his formidable wife. Abruptly, they hit a dead end. Escape requires a daring leap. He brandishes his firearm, exuding confidence. As they brace for the oncoming horde, someone suddenly yanks Gumdal backward. The girl seizes his hand, gripping a metal bar. Protruding from the ground, she clung fiercely to her spouse. Gumdal felt an agonizing pull, as if his limb was being ripped apart. The creature's strength was immense. It relentlessly tried to drag him down. This beast was no ordinary monster. The vile fiend craved living flesh. Meanwhile, little Chuck Buck remained at home, sketching pictures of herself, her mother, and Gumdal. She yearned for his return. She longed to play with him again. Gumdal teetered on the brink of death. Creatures from above attempted to capture them. Those below awaited their fall, anticipating a fresh meal. Even the formidable mother struggled to hold on. Her hands trembled. She knew inaction meant death. Their demise was imminent. She resolved to act. Releasing the metal bar, she plunges downward with the beast. Swiftly, her appendages ensnare another creature. She yanks a monstrosity from the edifice. It crashes down upon the colossal monster's skull. The behemoth falters, disoriented. A golden opportunity arises for the protective parent. Her sharpened appendage pierces the creature's tongue. It had been relentlessly gripping Gumdal's feet. The tongue releases its hold. Relief washes over the mother. Flawlessly executed. A safe landing is their only remaining obstacle. The lingering threats below must be addressed. Only then can she safeguard Gumdal. But Gumdal harbors different intentions. He embraces her tightly. They descend upon the monster's repulsive face. Gumdal's bulky sack cushions their descent, lessening the impact's brutality. Gumdal promptly leaps from the monster's maw. He tumbles across the terrain, absorbing the brutal force. Swiftly regaining his stance, he scoops up his spouse and sprints with utmost haste. Meanwhile, the colossal beast is consumed by fury as its quarry slips away. As they flee, the monstrous matriarch chastises Gumdal's impulsive act. She emphasizes his self-inflicted wounds, sustained while leaping and sprinting with her, as Chuck boxes progenitor. His injury would spell calamity for their kin. Yet, Gumdal's worry centers on her well-being. He accepts blame, acknowledging his culpability. Their predicament is undeniably perilous. The monster mother deems him utterly unhinged. He sustained harm shielding her, yet prioritizes her safety over his own. Amidst her reprimands regarding his recklessness, a razor-sharp fong pierces her abdomen. It impales her flesh. The ravenous beast retaliates with ferocious vengeance. This grotesque fiend refuses to relinquish its delectable quarry. Escape won't be easy, despite the gaping abdominal wound. The monstrous matriarch stubbornly dismisses it as a mere scratch. Suddenly, another beast seizes her throat. Gumdal, desperate to intervene, frantically searches his enormous satchel. He's certain he possesses the key to their salvation. Locating it requires precious seconds. The relentless horde pursues them. The monstrous mother impales her pursuers. With her tentacle-like appendages, she valiantly defends herself. After a frantic rummage, Gumdal unearths his prize, a grenade. He hurls it towards the monsters. A thunderous detonation erupts. Several creatures are obliterated instantly. The battle rages on. Gumdal produces more grenades. He bombards the remaining monsters. The pursuing creatures are incinerated and vanished in scorching blasts. Though they dispatched the standard-size horrors, a colossal behemoth persisted, unyielding. They paused, contemplating their next maneuver. Then, the valiant mother executed an audacious gambit. Snatching a grenade, she launched herself skyward. Just as the beast unleashed its fangs and appendages, Gumdal swiftly hit the ground. Izagape, mesmerized as she primed the explosive. With a mighty kick, she propelled it towards the fiend's face. The monstrous entity gaped, anticipating a fresh meal. Instead, the grenade landed squarely within. The detonation instantly obliterated its head. The triumphant mother then extended a defiant middle finger, a gesture of victory, as Gamdal beamed with admiration. He rejoiced, witnessing his formidable wife's expert handling. With the threat neutralized, they head towards a nearby dwelling. Inside, the monstrous matriarch disrobes. Gamdal observes this. He's relieved to find her stomach laceration mended. She playfully chides him to remain vigilant. After all, he's their family's guardian. With tranquility restored, they embark on a quest to locate their daughter. She must be anxiously awaiting them. Upon reaching the residence, Gamdal beckons, and little Chuck Buck sprints to her papa. A fervent, heartwarming embrace follows, brimming with affection and solace. Chuck Buck proudly displays her artwork to her father. Gamdal signals his approval. Pleased with her accomplishment, he presents her with a chocolate bar as a reward. The little one leaps with joy, delighted by the confectionery. The monstrous mother observes the tender moment, gazing at her loved ones with tender, affectionate eyes, despite the hardships of this existence. Her daughter's smile invigorates her. Each grin renews her spirit. She's resolved, no matter the circumstances, to safeguard her cherished family unconditionally. As the trio revels in their bliss, a figure lurks outside their dwelling. The stranger's countenance reveals resentment towards the family's contentment. Inside, meanwhile, the family partakes in a meal. Profound joy fills the parents' hearts. As their little one eats with gusto, Chuck Buck decides to share her food. She offers Gumdal a morsel first, hand-feeding him lovingly. Next, a spoonful of rice for her mother. Mother hesitates, but the child insists. The woman wavers. Gumdal softly reminded her daughter that mommy was already satiated, but Chuck Buck disagreed, especially because she hadn't witnessed her mother consuming anything. Gumdal countered, stating he'd seen her eat numerous times. This piqued Chuck Buck's curiosity. She inquired about her mother's eating habits, having never observed her doing so. The mother tenderly held Chuck Buck's hand, reassuring her, explaining that she didn't require sustenance, encouraging her little one to savor the meal. The crestfallen girl glumly ate. A melancholic expression adorned her face. Later, she clutched a cookie. A radiant smile bloomed. She declared the cookie's delectable flavor, urging her mother to partake, offering her cherished treat. Chuck Buck persistently pleaded for a bite, heightening the woman's apprehension, leaving her uncertain how to refuse her daughter's request without causing any offense. Finally, Mom yields to her daughter's relentless pleas. With shaky fingers, she hesitantly grabs for the treat. But just then, Chuck Buck snatches it away. She desires a share of the confection as well. She attempts to split the cookie. The result, 2 lopsided portions. Chuck Buck faces a predicament. Should she keep the bigger piece or offer it to her mother? Succumbing to temptation, she presents the smaller piece. Mom wavers once more. Chuck Buck's expression reveals all. The little girl craves the entire cookie. Unwilling to pressure her mother, Chuck Buck decides to devour it herself. Her ravenous thoughts are abruptly interrupted. She recalls her mission, to make Mom eat. Gomdal cheerfully requests a morsel, but Chuck Buck, consumed by desire, consumes it entirely. She opts for another attempt with a different biscuit. Later, Chuck Buck persistently urges her mother to consume various items. This behavior becomes a constant occurrence. The monstrous mother becomes increasingly exasperated. She abruptly rebukes her daughter, utilizing her customary sign language. She instructs Chuck Buck to cease her bothersome actions. She inquires if Chuck Buck derives pleasure from tormenting her. Her mother's sudden anger brings Chuck Buck to the verge of tears. She never wished to cause her mother distress. She attempts to convey her worry for her mother's well-being. She had never witnessed her mother consuming anything. She assumed her mother must be famished. The monster mother, comprehending her daughter's anxiety, tenderly touches Chuck Buck's small hand. She resolves to reveal the complete truth. She had concealed the reality for an extended period. Witnessing her daughter's sorrow, the truth could no longer be contained. Inhaling deeply, the mother prepared to confess to Chuck Buck. Her hunger for flesh was insatiable, but her daughter's touch ignited a primal urge. Monstrous desires surged within. A crimson droplet escaped Chuck Buck's nose. Maternal instincts warped into a ravenous craving. Consequences be damned. A slamming door punctuated the silence. The sound jolted Gumdal into action. The house stood eerily vacant. Chuck Buck confirmed her mother's departure. An unexplained outdoor excursion. The monstrous matriarch ravaged another being. Her impulses were uncontrollable. Her daughter's blood triggered the beast within. She fled in a desperate attempt at self-control. Consuming this monster offered a semblance of restraint. Later, the trio slumbered together. Chuck Buck nestled safely between her parents. The monstrous matriarch ponders the unexpected sweetness of a child's blood. Henceforth, she pledges utmost caution around her offspring. She swears eternal protection. A new day breaks. The father beams brightly before departing. He urges his family to remain safe until his return. He cautions his little one against disturbing her mother's slumber. She requires repose. A sentiment Chuck Buck echoes. Chuck Buck requests a chocolate treat from her father. With that, he departs. Upon his exit, a mischievous grin illuminates the little girl's face. With her mother asleep, Chuck Buck decides on an adventure. She readies herself and ventures into the outside world. She notices a deceased monster. She nonchalantly passes by. As she wanders, she observes other individuals navigating the streets. She approaches a blood-stained wall, sketching a hasty drawing. Completing her artwork, she resumes her journey. Chuck Buck sifts through the debris of corpses. After a thorough search, she unearths a handful of sweets. Delight washes over her at the unexpected discovery. Envisioning parental accolades for her rare find, she beams with pride. She possesses a truly exceptional prize. Doubt gnaws at her. Should she reveal the source of her treasure? After all, it was found outdoors. She recommences her trek. Her current objective, locate an individual named Hera. Meanwhile, two men notice the small girl traversing the road. Discovering a child in this desolate place fills them with elation. Such an encounter was utterly unforeseen. The dagger-wielding man contemplates a lucrative ransom from her relatives. He resolves to seize her, regardless of the consequences. However, his female accomplice raises a crucial point. What if the child is parentless? She'd be of no value to them. The blade-wielding man dismisses the worry. He reminds her of children's worth in the marketplace. Reconsidering, she contemplates selling the child to flesh-eaters for a hefty sum. To be frank, the child's gender remains unknown. Let's assume it's a girl until clarified. The path diverges, the youngster veers right. The winged woman accelerates, intent on seizing the child first. Unbeknownst to them, they are the quarry. A figure emerges, axe in hand, and unhesitatingly swings. The dagger wielder falls instantly. The woman halts, pivots, and beholds a white-haired individual and her companion. Near death, undeterred, she confronts the new adversary. Questioning the stranger's identity, she ponders if the albino might be the girl's protector. The pale figure gazes back with vacant eyes. Appearances suggest the white-haired individual is also female. The ponytail girl resorts to deception. She attempts to divert the pale woman's attention, feigning a presence behind her. As the white-haired woman turns, the ponytail girl lunges, bat in hand. The white-haired woman finds no one there. The ponytail girl believes victory is hers, having duped the pale figure into believing she was ambushed. Unbeknownst to her, impending doom awaits. In a flash, the pale woman delivers a swift, fatal axe blow. Good riddance to the obnoxious ponytail girl. The mystery of the eerie figure's gender is no longer relevant. Meanwhile, Chuck Box remains concealed, observing silently, quaking with fear as approaching steps echo. The silver-haired woman finally discovers the small child. Upon meeting the little one's gaze, her true identity as Hera is revealed, the very person the young girl sought. A grotesque creature lunges from the shadows. Hera obliterates it with her axe. Sunlight touches the wounded beast, reducing it to ashes. Returning to the child, she reiterates the crucial rule. Always inspect before venturing into darkness. Above all, she inquires about the child's presence and mother's whereabouts. Chuck Buck is paralyzed with fright. A swift blow to the head silences her. Hera's teachings were explicit. Always scan for threats before entering dim areas. Always be armed with a light source or weapon. Never approach unsettling sounds. Never interact with strangers, only mother, Dad, and Hera's cardinal rule. Never venture out alone. Hera's exasperated because, despite years of emphasizing this principle, the youngster hasn't grasped it. She firmly reiterates the importance of obedience. But Chuck Bach promptly objects, asserting her maturity for solo excursions. Hera's piercing glare silences her. The child is instantly subdued and humbled. Given Chuck Bach's insistence, Hera takes her to a mature destination. Chuckbox thrilled, anticipating a new escapade. Initial excitement gives way to dread in a pitch-dark environment. She dislikes the darkness immensely. Her cries for Hera go unanswered. Terror consumes Chuckbox. Finally, Hera questions her grown-up aspirations. To amplify the fright, Hera mentions monsters lurking in such darkness, since grown-ups seek valuable treasures here. This location is perpetually rife with brutal clashes. Abruptly, the youngster trips and tumbles to the earth. She's clueless about what she encountered, but retrieving her hand from the dirt, her countenance blanches, observing crimson staining her palm. This is the ultimate trigger. The child's resolve crumbles. She desperately implores escape. She beseeches to be taken outside. Her pleas are met with indifference. Tears well up, perspiration beads on her skin. Blinded by her terror, she's ultimately consumed by the horrifying realization of daily adult struggles. They grapple for sustenance. Finally, Hera materializes, reiterating that this is where adults venture, conquering their apprehensions, driven by the necessity of survival. Even mature individuals dread such treacherous domains. Their hunger drives them to desperate measures. She implores Chuckbox to remember this truth. Then, she signals their departure. They embark from the ravaged area, navigating through a gruesome carpet of fallen monsters. Upon reaching the apartments, Hera decides to bid farewell, but vows to reunite with the child. When she ventures out with her parents, she sternly cautions Chuckbox against revealing the day's events. The little one makes a peculiar request, asking Hera to take a seat. She complies. Chuckbox playfully knocks her head. Retaliation for the earlier tears. Chuckbox offers Hera a sweet treat, discovered during her escapade. With a farewell wave, she departs, beaming as she returns home. The small confection leaves a lasting impact on Hera. A grin spreads across her face. The realization dawns. The last possesses unforeseen strength. This fuels her conviction that Chuckbox will blossom into a captivating individual. Meanwhile, as Chuckbox grasps the handle, a shift in her finger's hue catches her eye. The narrative returns to bygone days. Amidst winter's embrace, Chuckbox emerges. Mom and Dad, rummaging through the debris, seeking anything of worth. Suddenly, Dad discovers a silken scarf. He tenderly places it around monstrous Mom's neck, a sweet gesture, bringing a rosy hue to her cheeks. She's deeply moved by the considerate present. Lost in a fervent embrace, they briefly forget their little girl. Dad hollers for Chuckbox, but quickly realizes she's vanished. Meanwhile, the tiny adventurer embarks on her own quest. She explores, hunting for something of use. That's when she first spots Hera, grounded and seemingly wounded. Hera struggles to even glance at Chuckbox. Finally, she gruffly tells the child to scram. However, Chuckbox hesitates, unsure about abandoning someone hurt. Hera gives her a frigid stare, hoping to frighten her away. But her intense gaze failed to daunt the small child. Instead, Chuckbox inquisitively and endearingly questioned the meaning of "get lost." The phrase was beyond her comprehension. Hera, seeking clarity, commanded her return to her parents, ceasing her bothersome behavior. Defying the order, Chuckbox grasped Hera's wounded hand. She gently exhaled warm air onto her frigid, icy limb, attempting to thaw it. Hera abruptly retracted her other hand, pulling the girl away, but her action halted mid-movement. She observed Chuckbox's earnest efforts to aid her. Thus began their past encounter. Abruptly, the little one roused from her slumber. Briefly awakened, she succumbed once more to sleep. Meanwhile, her parents concealed themselves from the monstrous threats. Exasperated, they lamented the dark clouds that emboldened the creature's daytime roam. Even in daylight, they posed a danger. The mother declared their home desolate, devoid of hope. To make matters worse, it was the last apothecary for miles. Gondal suggests a respite, but the mother couldn't bear to pause even for a moment. Her daughter's finger needed tending. A grave ailment might plague it, she feared. The gentle giant offered comfort. He urged her to be kind to herself. A remedy must exist, he assured. Guilt consumed the mother. She held herself solely responsible for her daughter's affliction. Gondal's worry deepened, witnessing her self-reproach. He reached his limit. With a heavy sigh, he reminded her. Their desperate quest for medication was proving futile. Days spent scouring countless establishments yielded nothing. Their search was barren. Their efforts, he now realized, were misguided from the outset. Hope Village became their new destination. A physician resided there, rumor had it. He believes that physician holds their sole glimmer of hope. Entry, however, requires a toll. The primary obstacle lies in the peculiar nature of the payment. Only items of utility and worth are accepted. Gamdal is uncertain where to procure such a commodity. She taps his palm, a familiar gesture. Her subsequent communication fills him with dread. Though her hand signals remain partially enigmatic, she seemingly proposes venturing into Dungeon Village. Her objective, to acquire something precious. He reminds her of the location's perilous nature, a veritable lair of beasts. Undeterred, she dismisses the monstrous threat. The gamble, she asserts, is justifiable. She boasts prior experience in such domains. The task, she believes, is within her capabilities. Her sole concern, evading the dungeon's overlord. The peril surpasses his capacity. Gumdal consents to safeguarding Chuck Buck and allows her to depart. Before separating, he offers her the flashlight. Upon opening the bag, however, he discovers the toddler sound asleep within. Initially, both parents are incredulous, rubbing their eyes. A second glance confirms her presence in the bag. The shock leaves them drenched in sweat. The little one's drowsy eyes flutter open, meeting her mother's sharp gaze. Chuckbot freezes, realizing she's been caught red-handed. She attempts a magician's emergence from a bag. Her ruse fails miserably. She receives a maternal knock on the head and a paternal earful. Daddy is enraged. This is perhaps his first display of such fury towards the little one. Surprisingly, he merely conveys the angry mother's sentiments. Mom insists on an immediate return home. They must depart without delay, with no opportunity for debate. The matriarch embarks on her expedition. Chuck Box initiates her incessant inquiries. She probes her mother's destination. Convinced her mother's course is perilous, fueled by her presence, she resists her departure. She implores her mother to return home. Unmoved, the mother forges her own way, entrusting the child to her spouse's care. As the mother fades from view, remorse consumes Chuck Box. She blames herself for her mother's abandonment. Gomdal consoles her, promising a swift return. He suggests their own homecoming. Abruptly, the large man experiences abdominal discomfort. Nature calls for a lavatory visit. He excuses himself to relieve himself. He leaves the young girl unattended, instructing her to remain until his return. Concurrently, Chuck Box's mind spirals into a vortex of negativity. A harrowing memory from a shadowy abyss resurfaces. The notion of her mother venturing there fills her with dread. The thought is utterly devastating. Concurrently, the monstrous matriarch progresses toward her subsequent stop. A melancholic expression adorns her visage. Her daughter's crestfallen countenance lingers in her mind. The memory of her attempt to intervene persists. Regret gnaws at her for departing without solace. She blames herself for neglecting to inspect the satchel prior to embarking on her expedition. Engrossed in contemplation, nearby creatures encircle a discarded container. An enticing aroma wafts through the air. Sustenance, perhaps a living being concealed beneath. Faint murmurs can be discerned. The horde converges upon the box, only to discover emptiness. Inevitably, our little girl was concealed beneath that discarded box. Her mother swiftly intervened, rescuing her. She shielded her child from becoming monstrous fodder. The moment she embraced her little one, the horde of creatures lunged, but the woman rapidly retreated. She deftly maneuvered over the throng of monsters. A creature lashed out with its tentacles. She severed them effortlessly. The other foul beings met a similar demise. She decimated them, dispatching them like mere weeds. Fatigue began to set in. If this persisted, sustaining the fight would prove difficult. The child extended a tiny finger, pointing skyward. Glancing upwards, the mother observed the clouds parting. As the radiance intensified, the monsters recoiled in agony. Every creature, craving our heroine's flesh, now frantically scrambles for survival. They yearn for refuge from the light. The mother must plunge into the subterranean labyrinth. Hysterical monsters will soon overrun nearby structures. Each desperately seeks its own salvation. A colossal beast blindsides the mother. The little one reels in utter terror. Agony notwithstanding, the mother lashes out with her appendage. But the behemoth possesses surprising agility. It unleashes a furious volley of blows. Each strike lands squarely on the desperate mother's back. She fights valiantly to shield her offspring. Suddenly, seemingly from thin air, an axe cleaves the enormous brute's skull. It crumples, permanently incapacitated. The mother, bewildered by the axe's origin, presses onward, time being of the essence. Gomdal materializes at the building's threshold. The monstrous matriarch's path remains unknown. Exhaustion cripples him after his desperate dash. Hordes of creatures infest the structure. His search for his daughter is thwarted. Guilt consumes him, blaming himself entirely. He agonizes over the bathroom break that separated them. In the interim, the axe-wielding savior's identity is unveiled. Hra emerges, stunning Gumdal with her presence. The stranger's identity baffles him. Before he can utter a word, a ferocious blow strikes his face. He crumples to the ground. The monstrous mother reprimands her offspring. She scolds the little one for venturing into peril. Chuck Buck's disobedience infuriates her. But then, a tiny finger gently touches her mother's hand. Fear, she confesses. She couldn't bear to see her mother harmed. Jukebox reveals that she understands her parents' tireless efforts to provide. They shield her from their burdens, but she perceives their hidden struggles. She yearns to alleviate her mother's pain. She desires to comfort and support her, to soothe any hurt. Maternal sorrow washes over her mother. A tender sigh escapes, followed by a warm, heartfelt embrace. Hordes of monsters overrun the vicinity. To conceal Chuck, the monstrous matriarch conceals her beneath her garments. She navigates through the throng of undead. Escape from the building is paramount. Hold on tight, she urges Chuck. Avoiding any encounters is crucial. Suddenly, a monster encroaches too near. Unease grips the monstrous mother. She fights to maintain her composure. Remaining composed was paramount. Any reaction could endanger both her and Chuck Buck. She urged the little one to remain still. A unsettling sensation washed over her. The creature seemed to be communicating telepathically. Its message, resistance, was futile. She turned to confront it, but it vanished. Its sudden disappearance was baffling. She pressed onward, the exit within reach. A colossal hand lunged, attempting to seize her. She narrowly dodged, the hand inadvertently ensnaring other monsters. Initially, she was disoriented. Confusion reigned. Recognizing the gigantic hand, she identified the dungeon's overlord. This behemoth disregarded its lesser kin. It seizing anything within reach. The appendage sweeps again, snatching another group of creatures. Tragically, our monstrous matriarch is among them. Fortunately, only the mother is ensnared. Chuckbox had already tumbled down. Witnessing her mother's capture, Chuckbox erupts in sobs. Yet, her mother urges her to flee. Unexpectedly, Jukebox obeys, sprinting away. She doesn't stubbornly remain. As the limb retracts, the monster mother musters her might. She rakes her claws across its hand. Agony makes the beast convulse. Its grip involuntarily loosens. Upon landing, she races towards Chuckbuck. She dashes to locate Chuckbuck. Elsewhere within the structure, a stunning monstrous female appears, possibly the overseer. The camera refocuses on Chuckbuck, pursued by the relentless horde. She flees with all her might, tears streaming down her face. A misstep sends her tumbling to the ground. The creature looms over her, poised to strike, but then another monstrosity slays her attacker. Terror grips her even tighter. The other beasts remain motionless, frozen in fear. The alpha anticipates its reward. As the beast makes contact, panic overwhelms Chuckbuck. She voids her bladder in sheer terror. She cries out for her mother. The vile creature seizes her, drawing her towards its gaping maw. A peculiar odor assaults its senses. It recoils in sudden alarm. It alone wasn't affected, but every other creature began perspiring, fear gripping them. They fled in the opposite direction, as if their existence was imperiled. Initially, Chuckbuck was bewildered. Then, a putrid odor assaulted her nostrils. Before reacting, a blow from behind struck her. Her sweets scattered across the ground. A deformed child emerged. He launched a powerful, bare-handed punch from afar. The young girl desperately reached for her treats, but the monstrous child snatched them first. His sole intention was to torment her. Chuckbuck pleaded for the candy's return. They were for her mother and father, she explained. The mutated child sniffed the sweets and impulsively devoured one. Chuck Buck was heartbroken. Those were presents for her parents, discovered after a arduous search, but the little devil devoured it whole. Enraged, Chuck Buck delivered a swift facial blow. The candy ejected from the imp's mouth. Exasperated, she pinched his cheeks. Clearly, she disregarded the tyke's monstrous nature. She grappled with the nuisance. Retaliating, he pinched back. They engaged in a juvenile squabble. Their back and forth resembled playful children. Ultimately, the brat yielded, defeated. He fled, wailing. The woman, relieved, reclaimed her sweets. Observing monsters were astonished. They were utterly dumbfounded. Her effortless victory stunned them. They stumbled before her in awe. A simple sneeze from her, they dispersed in terror, Chuck Buck oblivious to their flight. Pondering the situation, a foul odor came to mind. She questioned if the repulsive stench, emanating from the obnoxious child, was the cause. Perhaps it repelled the creatures. This epiphany emboldened her. Fear vanished completely. With newfound courage, she sprinted towards her mother. Suddenly, a grip from behind halted her progress. Bokchuk overheard two monsters conversing, mistaking her for the dungeon master's offspring. Due to Batchuk's scent, her human nature startled them further. They deduced that she must have encountered the dungeon master's child. Her delicate nature prompted them to abduct her. Incidentally, the female monster was named Dion. As they pinched her cheeks, she trembled, longing for her mother, pleading for assistance in locating her mother. Dion feigns sympathy upon hearing the request. A sinister grin spreads across her face as she approaches. She proclaims she'll now assume the maternal role. They briefly taunt the small child. Subsequently, Dion's accomplice inquires about surrendering her to their patriarch. Dion, however, insists on retaining the girl. Nevertheless, the cloaked figure reminds her of their mission to aid their progenitor, to apprehend the dungeon master, and devour him. Therefore, they should present the young girl to their father. As a nourishing repast, Dion counters that she discovered the child. Thus, she merits at least a single limb. Chuck Buck is utterly petrified. The hooded figure salivates, anticipating a taste. Chuck Buck trembles with dread. Her sole desire is to reunite with her mother, but a spark of ingenuity ignites. She devises a plan to escape her predicament. Whirling around, she cries out for her mom. As the other creatures turn towards the sound, Chuck Buck's yells provide cover, and the little one seizes her opportunity. She flees with all her might. The monsters erupt in laughter, amused by her tiny legs pumping furiously. But sinister intentions arise, and they give chase. Mid-pursuit, they collide with a throng of panicked monsters. Chuck Buck exploits the chaos. He plunges into the crowd, seeking concealment. The hooded figure mows down all in its path. The pursuers are momentarily hindered, granting Chuck Buck precious seconds to escape. Dion unleashes a tentacle-like appendage. Joining the fray, she decimates monsters. Chuck Buck sprints onward, vanishing into the shadows. She seeks refuge behind a column. A vile creature swiftly overtakes her. They offer kinship, beckoning her closer. Terror grips the child, threatening to overwhelm her. It seems, her dread triggers a grotesque transformation in her finger. With a swing of her hand, her mutated digit slices the cloaked figure's hand. Initial pain gives way to excruciating agony. A searing torment engulfs his entire hand. His final moments are consumed by unbearable suffering. An inferno rages within him. Chuck Buck remains utterly bewildered. She gazes at her hand in astonishment. Meanwhile, Dayan feasts upon other monsters. Her hooded companion has vanished. The thought of him devouring the girl alone enrages her. She craves a taste of that tender flesh, especially given her unfamiliarity with such tenderness. The notion of consuming a child both excites and deranges her. The girl's lingering scent and taste upon her hand induce salivation. Her exhilaration seems short-lived, for the monstrous matriarch has appeared, enraged beyond measure. Witnessing this warped female, harboring cannibalistic desires towards her daughter, has unleashed her fury. Dayan's fate hangs precariously in the balance. Meanwhile, the cloaked figure writhes in torment, consumed by an inferno of pain. His agonized cries reverberate, amplifying the little girl's terror. As the monster's agony becomes insurmountable, he severs his own hand to quell the burning. The severed appendage plummets. Though maimed, The wretch finds respite from the searing pain. Consumed by rage towards the small child, he intends to consume her whole, to avenge his torment. But before he can act, a forceful impact slams into his back. The blow sends the villain flying. The projectile, Gumdoll's enormous bag, typically carried by Chuckbuck. Turning, she witnesses her father, enraged, approaching the fiend, who dared harm his offspring. First, he checks on her, offering apologies, understanding her terror. He then notices her altered finger. He inquires, but she remains silent. Tears welling, she sobs, revealing creatures have abducted her mother. Meanwhile, the hooded antagonist rises again. His severed hand regenerates. He's poised to consume them both. The creature is perplexed. He observes the father nonchalantly searching his bag, serenely instructing his daughter to stay behind him. The beast is utterly baffled. They seemingly ignore his presence entirely. This further enrages the monster. He lunges at them without a moment's pause. Yet before he nears, Gomdal hurls a brick at the fiend's repulsive face. It connects with a resounding thud, but that's not all. The formidable father already grips another brick, poised to demolish the creature's visage. The monster charges again, and from the opposite side, Gomdal readies the brick with astonishing swiftness. He launches it with incredible force. Mid-flight, the monster pulverizes the brick, but the brick was merely a feint. A barrage of bricks descends upon him. He barely manages to deflect them. He shields himself, bracing for the impact. Gumdal's assault continues relentlessly, an unstoppable barrage. Each brick's impact intensifies, the blows escalating in force. With every hurled projectile, his strength amplifies. He's determined to pulverize the beast, reduce it to rubble, all for endangering his beloved Chuckbuck, placing his precious son in harm's way. The father's ammunition, his brick supply, dwindles. The creature seizes the opportunity. Tentacles ensnare Gumdal, restricting his movements. The poor father struggles against the constricting grip. A smug expression adorns the hooded villain's face. He assumes victory is imminent, with Gumdal disarmed. He believes this will be an effortless triumph. He constricts Gumdal's throat, cutting off his air supply. Gumdal gasps for breath, fighting for survival. The monster revels in his victim's torment. A sudden, icy presence manifests behind the creature. Before comprehension dawns, Hra severs the vile appendage, clean and swift. Perspiration beads on the villain's hairless scalp. He realizes he's being double-crossed. Meanwhile, Hra exudes a chilling aura. She warns the scoundrel of his impending doom. The creature swiftly retreats. Hra pursues with relentless savagery. She engages him in fierce combat. His tentacled strikes are met with swift retribution. She effortlessly severs them. The father observes in stunned silence. He's astounded by her dominance over the beast. He witnessed her decimate countless foes along their journey. It prompts him to wonder, where does such unwavering power originate? She defies human limitations. She embodies monstrous strength. A force of nature, she battles the hooded monstrosity. His thoughts flash back to a shared moment with Dion. Another extraterrestrial entity emerges. It probes both the hooded figure and Dion. The distinction between monster and human is questioned. Dion declares monsters are mindless, unlike humans. The extraterrestrial entity concurs. He elaborates, humans possess cunning and adaptability. Yet they lack physical prowess. Monsters, conversely, are powerful, but they're impulsive, driven by primal instincts. Each possesses unique advantages and disadvantages. The creature asserts that he, and those like Dan, are neither frail like humans nor witless like monsters. They embody the strengths of both. Even monsters avoid confronting them. This, he proclaims, renders them the ultimate survivors in this ravaged world. He believes individuals like them, members of a flesh-eating tribe, are the chosen few. He urges Dayan and the hooded bastard to embrace their privileged position. They readily assent. The hooded bastard addresses the grotesque creature as father. Presumably, he's the leader they intended to introduce to Chuckbuck. With that decree, the patriarch commanded the duo to eliminate the dungeon master's offspring. Meanwhile, he pursued the dungeon master in the present timeline. As the battle raged, Gomdal spotted the cloaked figure attempting a clandestine maneuver. He swiftly alerted Hera, trusting her acute intuition. The woman evaded the assault with a nimble duck. She retaliated, inflicting a profound laceration upon the villain's abdomen. He reeled backward, forced to retreat. Despite enduring the relentless onslaught, the creature remained confident in his inevitable triumph. Echoing his progenitor's assertion, he proclaimed himself the predestined victor, impervious to her efforts. As he regenerated, he pronounced their impending doom. He lunged forward once more, but Hera stood firm, resolute, unflinching. She braced herself for the inevitable confrontation. Before misfortune strikes, the focus shifts to the monstrous matriarch. She relentlessly assaults Dayan. Confusion washes over Dayan. She notices the creature's golden eyes, mirroring her father's. Why this brutal attack? The woman possesses inhuman strength. Dayan learns this firsthand. A devastating blow leaves Dayan bleeding. Dayan steels herself for battle. She's ready to face the monster's full power. Her tentacles rapidly morphed into centipede-like limbs. Appendages, grotesque and numerous. Their length and girth expanded dramatically. She launched her tentacles at Mama with ferocious speed. But Monster Mama was no pushover. Energy surged within her hands. She sliced through the incoming tentacles with devastating precision. By this point, Dion visibly struggled to match her prowess. Meanwhile, Mama's power had ascended to new heights. Dion's tentacle strikes were futile. Mama effortlessly evaded each attack. Dion's frustration intensified. The relentless exchange continued, Mama gradually gaining dominance. As the battle raged, Mama finally breached Dion's defenses. Her razor-sharp tentacle loomed menacingly, mere inches from Dion's face. Trapped, Dion braced for the inevitable impact. She shields her face with her hand, at least sparing herself from further disfigurement. The relentless assault has severely weakened Dion. She struggles to remain upright. Mama remains unfazed, utterly composed. More alarming for Dion, Mama's inflicted wound refuses to mend. It remains numb, devoid of sensation. Initially, she was oblivious. None of her battle injuries are recovering. A chilling thought arises, poison. The realization dawns too late for Dayan. Helpless tremors consume her. Facing imminent demise, she resorts to a desperate measure. She severs the festering tentacle. The unhealing appendage is discarded. Her wounded hand is also detached. She lunges at Mama with ferocious intensity. Mama scoffs, dismissing the futile tantrum. Her objective: locate Chuck Buck. She resolves to conclude the conflict. Dion aprakis Mama. He sprays gore from his severed hand. The blood blinds Mama. The craven woman flees frantically. Her immediate priority: confront her hooded ally, Che Gun. His alliance could be her salvation. But Che Gun endures a brutal beating from Hera. He's limbless. Utterly incapacitated, he's defenseless. Dion sprints. He calls out to Che Gun, but Mama won't relinquish her prey easily. Escape is improbable. She's resolute in retrieving her daughter. She believes these villains abducted her child. The scene shifts to the battered Che Gun. His body is covered in wounds. His pride suffers even greater damage. He can hardly bear the utter humiliation of defeat. At the hands of this human, he deems utterly insignificant. R.A. observes the bewilderment on the villain's face. And indeed, he's perplexed by how a human, seemingly feeble, could possess such superior strength. She disabuses him of this notion, asserting her power. With brutal force, she crushes his skull, a sickening squelch reverberating through the area. Shockingly, the grisly sound originated not from her blow, but from the monster impaling his own chest, a self-inflicted wound. He deems suicide a more dignified end than falling prey to this despicable woman. He's certain his father will avenge him. With that conviction, he expires instantly. Dion arrives at the scene, only to find Che Gun lifeless, utterly devastated. Before she could comprehend the devastating blow, a lash from Mama cracked across her back. The brutal strike sent her sprawling. Chuck Buck's face lit up, recognizing her mother. Even her husband seemed visibly relieved. But their joy vanished as Hera lunged at Mama, a ferocious onslaught. Mama, equally bewildered, was clueless about the woman's identity. Yet, she swiftly braced herself, prepared to counter the imminent danger. Before a bloodbath erupted, Gamdal seized Hera's arms. He vehemently forbade her from harming his wife. Hera struggled against his powerful hold. Mama was astonished by her husband's presence. Annoyance and ardor mixed as she questioned his arrival. He'd been instructed to remain outside, but he declared his inability to stand idle. When his family faced peril, as the behemoth wrestles to control Hera, Chuck Buck dashes towards her mother. With tiny steps, she reminds her mom of her valiant escape attempt from the creature, just as instructed. Witnessing this, Monster Mama's eyes well up. A fervent embrace is shared, radiating pure, heartwarming joy. Even the giant's emotions surface, nearly bringing him to tears. Hera finds this display unsettling. Amidst the affectionate reunion, Hera spots Chuck Buck's deformed digit. Enraged, she unleashes a furious rant, lambasting the parents' negligence. She deems their carelessness responsible for a grave consequence. Furthermore, their obliviousness to their daughter's affliction fuels her ire even further. As she berates Monster Mama, Gumdoll intervenes. Unable to bear the insults directed at his spouse, he reveals his culpability. Hera's anger, he insists, is misplaced. Mama swiftly silences him, utilizing him as her interpreter once more. She expresses profound gratitude for Hera's intervention. She acknowledges responsibility for her daughter's affliction. After resupplying, they'll seek treatment at Hope Village. Hera is assured of ample compensation for her benevolence. Finally, she inquires about Hera's name. Hera readily replies, proclaiming herself a comrade of Chuck Buck. An unsettling quiet descends. Hera appears far too mature to be their daughter's acquaintance. Mama questions the child, seeking confirmation. The little girl enthusiastically affirms. The large man is taken aback by this revelation. He inquires of the small girl, questioning her secrecy on the matter. The young girl swiftly expresses remorse. Hera, she explains, instructed her silence. She defends Hera, asserting her kindness and good nature. Hera has treated her exceptionally well, she insists. Her parents interrupt her before a reprimand for her clandestine activities can commence, for all the trouble she's been secretly causing. Helios intervenes, silencing them. She accepts responsibility. She requested Chuck Buck's discretion. Chuck Buck remained unharmed, eliminating any cause for concern. She refocuses on the pressing issue. She urges them to prioritize gathering provisions. Idle chatter is a waste of valuable time. With that, she departs. The young girl swiftly trails behind her. Mama contempla Thérèse's intervention. She recalls Hera's rescue. Hera vanquished the beast. Once more, she was indebted. Turning to her spouse, as customary, she employs him as interpreter. She halts Hera with an inquiry. It probes Hera's true nature. Who is Hera? Silence hangs heavy. Finally, Hera offers a simple reply. Just Chuck's companion. Nothing further, no elaboration. Urgency compels them onward. Time is precious. Departing, they glimpse Diane. Against all odds, she persists. The group advances, eliminating undead hordes in their path. They arrive at a well-stocked warehouse. Chuck, Buck, and her father excitedly inspect a crate. Their faces illuminate upon discovering its contents. Behold, a treasure trove of treats, a delight to brighten anyone's spirits. The dad swiftly gathers the delectable goodies into his pack. He's certain this bounty will cover Chuck Buck's care. Meanwhile, Monster Mama observes silently. Hera's true nature consumes her thoughts. Mama senses Hera possesses extraordinary abilities. Her combat prowess is undeniable. Mama acknowledges Hera saved Chuck Buck's life. Yet an unsettling feeling lingers. Something peculiar and enigmatic about Hera. Buffless Mama. Hera's posture, her fighting style, her serene composure, all arouse suspicion. Despite her efforts, Mama remains perplexed. After procuring provisions, their expedition resumes. Chuck Buck enjoys a shoulder ride from his dad. Abruptly, a monstrous presence. Mama perceives an anomaly deep within the passage. She screeches to a halt. Colossal hands materialize, propelling everyone into a frantic retreat. This entity, whatever it may be, possesses blinding speed, inescapable, exacerbating their plight. A horde of creatures obstructs the corridor. Their escape route is severed, yet fate intervenes. These monsters share their terror of the pursuer, joining the desperate flight for survival. As they race through the tunnel, a fork in the path presents a crucial decision. The enormous hand grazes the large man's shoulder, sealing off the right passage. A chilling realization dawns upon them. The dungeon master orchestrates their torment. Left with no alternative, they veer left. Gomdal assures them the exit is imminent. Yet, the colossal hand relentlessly pursues. They narrowly escape with their lives. But their haven is teeming with grotesque creatures. Worse, They've reached an impasse. The Dungeon Master's prior actions now make sense. He deliberately obstructed the rightward passage. Both women brace for combat, prepared to confront the looming peril. The entity before them is uniquely disturbing and demonstrably stronger than typical undead. Its piercing yellow eyes signify a heightened threat, a more formidable adversary. Yellow eyes denote sentience, autonomous action, independent will. The narrative abruptly shifts to the past, revealing the lifeless form of the extraterrestrial Daijin, known as Father. He has finally usurped the Dungeon Master's Chuti, relishing the sustenance it offers. His hunger seems sated for the foreseeable future. He ponders Dian and the cloaked figure as he journeys. Their current whereabouts remain a mystery. Then he notices one of Dian's appendages. Tracing its path, he soon uncovers a grim scene. Both the masked villain and Dian are incapacitated. However, Dion clings to life, though grievously injured. He approaches, inquiring, "Who inflicted this upon you?" For a fleeting moment, Dion mistakes him for the Dungeon Master himself. Her father swiftly rectifies the misunderstanding, simply urging her to reveal her attacker. Dion promptly describes a creature with amber eyes, mirroring her father's past affliction. The mother is overwhelmed by the mention of the golden-eyed beast. Observing her distress, Gumdal inquires about her familiarity with the creature. She denies any knowledge. Mama distinctly recalls the monster's prior inability to speak. Its sole alteration? A pectoral embedded eye. Conversely, the beast swiftly sprouted grotesque, colossal lower appendages. Mama remained oblivious to this creature. Yet, the golden-eyed fiend seemed cognizant of her. He demanded the return of the pilfered corpse. Stunned, Gumdal inquired about any stolen remains. Naturally, Mama remained utterly bewildered by the accusation. The monstrosity, however, expected her unfamiliarity with his transmogrified state. Recollection was inconsequential. He intended to reclaim the body, dead or alive. Suddenly, Hera intervened, urging the behemoth to prioritize Chuckbox's safety. She commanded his non-interference. She vowed to resolve the matter unilaterally. Before further advancement, Mama intercepts, declaring her intent to confront the beast. Victory is uncertain, but she will engage. At the very least, she can impede its advance. To achieve this, she must endure excruciating agony while unleashing her ultimate weapon. She's left with no alternative. Crimson fangs erupt from her gums, lengthening ominously. Furthermore, a razor-sharp barb extends from her appendage. It too glows with a menacing red hue. The exertion leaves her utterly depleted. Yet, she must persevere. Gumdal gapes, witnessing her resort to such drastic measures. The gravity of the situation is evident. Even her spouse is terrified. Regardless, Mama lunges forward with ferocious speed to intercept the monster. Meanwhile, a horde of creatures descends upon them. Hera resolves to engage these lesser foes, while Mama confronts the formidable leader. The Cyclopean monstrosity is captivated by Mama's crimson needles. Her body held a crucial significance for his objective. His massive claws unfurled. But Mama reacted swiftly and decisively. She severed them effortlessly. Enraged, the golden-eyed fiend's gaze darkened. He had invested greatly in acquiring this vessel. Yet, his appendages were rendered useless with ease. They were now incapacitated. Decay consumed his extremities. Mama charged towards the hideous Cyclops. Just as her strike was imminent, a serpentine tongue ensnared her ankles. She was immobilized mere inches from her foe. The one-eyed abomination had lured her into a trap. He reveled in her deception. Mama launched a tendril counterattack. The beast hoisted her higher. Then, he hurled her earthward. The impact was devastating. Chuck was paralyzed with terror. Meanwhile, the creature continues its relentless assault. Chuckbuck can no longer bear witness. She races at full speed to her mother's aid. The golden glow in Mama's eyes diminishes with the savage blow. She slips into oblivion. She finds herself adrift, running aimlessly. Tendrils sprout from her back. Perspiration beads as an alien feeling courses through her. She struggles to tear them away. Her efforts prove futile. Yet, she finally manages to rip the appendages free. Her apprehension intensifies. The detached parasite advances towards her. It lunges with terrifying speed. She steels herself for the inevitable. She abruptly awakens from the horrific dream. Her little one's voice pierces the silence. Her child's call breaks the spell. The amber glow returns to her eyes. Chuck Buck stands defiantly between her mother and the monstrous creature. With her transformed digit pointed accusingly, she unleashes a torrent of insults upon the beast. The monstrous matriarch, conversely, trembles, frantically urging her offspring to flee. Meanwhile, Hera and Gamdal engage other horrors, helpless but to observe with mounting dread. Mama summons her resolve, shielding her child, though utterly immobilized. The malevolent, golden-eyed entity, however, menaces the small one. Intrigued by Chuck Buck, he inquires, is she human, or perhaps one of his kind? For he observes her altered finger. He yearns to understand its origin. His meaning remains unclear. Yet, let us witness this cyclopean beast's intentions. With his entire being, the infant snarls at the brute, demanding he release her mother. Intrigued by this anomaly, the Cyclops, like a perverse collector, decides to seize them, both mother and child, to dissect and examine their insides. Hera is utterly astonished. The colossal hand descends upon them. The monstrous matriarch urges her offspring to flee, but the tenacious little one refuses, despite her overwhelming terror, determined to shield her mother. Witnessing her daughter's unwavering courage, a fierce resolve ignites within the mother. She will defend her family to the death. She embraces her child tightly. The monstrous appendage nears. It crashes down upon them. Hera and Gamdal are left speechless. The yellow-eyed fiend lets out a chilling chuckle, his vengeance seemingly satiated. However, underestimating Mama is a grave mistake. Her reprisal is swift and brutal, leaving the yellow-eyed villain disoriented and overwhelmed by the onslaught. The creature is a blur of motion, each blow drawing a crimson spray. Following the relentless assault, Mama retreats to a safe haven. The monster is utterly ravaged, its form mangled beyond recognition. Its flesh dissolves like molten wax. Even Gamdal is perplexed by this extraordinary power. Such a spectacle is unprecedented in his existence. Mama appears to have undergone a profound transformation. Now wielding crimson-tipped whips, she is a force to be reckoned with. Elsewhere, in a secluded nook, terrified monsters flee in desperation. They're completely terrified. That impish child from earlier is pursuing them relentlessly. He's demanding playtime. Nobody seems keen on entertaining the aggressive youngster. He's utterly inconsiderate. Meanwhile, the golden-eyed fiend is enraged after being thoroughly trounced. His freshly obtained prize physique is now damaged, much to his displeasure. He boasted of holding back before. Now, fueled by fury, he'll unleash his full might. He hurls his colossal hands towards our heroes once more. Surprisingly, the group isn't his target. The hand sees nearby monsters. He devours them ravenously. They're consumed like delectable treats. Everyone is baffled. The creature's motive remains a mystery. Observing the behemoth, it appears he's grown even more formidable, his form revitalized. After devouring all nearby creatures, he has achieved colossal proportions. Gamdal is drenched in sweat, confronted by this gargantuan monstrosity. Mama urges Gamdal to secure the girl, preparing to confront the behemoth. Gamdal is hesitant, unconvinced by her plan. Escape is his foremost thought. Mama's reassuring touch attempts to soothe him. She seeks to quell his fear. The large man is consumed by self-loathing. His perceived weakness infuriates him. He vows to safeguard Chuck Buck with his life. Before she departs, the big guy and the little one encourage her to vanquish the beast. Mama smiles and advances towards the creature. It immediately attempts to crush her with its immense hand. The monster is amused by Mama's attempt to defend the feeble humans. She speaks of family. He counters that he too is kin, where his offspring obey every directive. As compensation for the hardships he endured raising them, he firmly believes this embodies true kinship. But Mama stands defiant. She swiftly confronts the one-eyed villain. She vehemently challenges his warped perception of family. To her, his actions equate to enslavement. Without hesitation, she unleashes crimson projectiles. The yellow-eyed beast summons a fleshy barrier, narrowly deflecting the imminent strike. The projectile sears the flesh upon contact, yet it fails to penetrate. The monster retaliates with a mighty blow, but upon impact, Mama embeds her fangs deep into his flesh. The bitten area rapidly disintegrates. She relentlessly mauls the monster's hand. The creature's fleshy appendage ensnared her foot. Its grip tightened into a vice-like fist. Immobilization was its gruesome intent. Enraged, the beast realized its limb was compromised. Retribution was imminent. With ferocious intent, it squeezed, aiming to pulverize bone and organ. The crushing force escalated. Agony overwhelmed the hapless mama. Darkness threatened to consume her. Abruptly, the behemoth crumbled. Its hold on mama miraculously released. A severed leg revealed the source of its downfall. Hera stood triumphant, the architect of its dismemberment. "Flee," she urged, promising a diversion. A futile gesture, as all could foresee. Mama lunged, defiance burning in her eyes. Hera joined the fray, their assault a symphony of skill and precision. Gamdal observed, captivated by their prowess. Their mastery left him spellbound. Victory was assured, doubt banished from his mind. Just when the situation couldn't get any weirder, a recognizable voice, that of a pesky, playful child, rings out, leaving Chuck Box utterly astonished. It's the distinct, unmistakable tone of the little rascal who pilfered her sweets. In the meantime, Mama is fiercely battling to safeguard her daughter. Hera, conversely, is grappling with a dilemma: continue the struggle or escape with Chuck, Buck, and flee the perilous scene. She recognizes that deserting the pair could be fatal, yet it might also provide a chance to shield Chuck Buck. Despite her inner turmoil, Hera is resolute in her determination to vanquish the vile creature. Mama harbors the same animosity towards the despicable being. They share a singular objective: to obliterate the monster and ensure everyone's safe escape. However, the monster undergoes a complete metamorphosis, becoming gargantuan and incredibly muscular. Following his metamorphosis, the golden-eyed fiend believes their demise is imminent and inconsequential. He relishes their impending doom, certain of his victory. Now, let's observe the imp. He's equally astonished by Chuck Buck's presence. Gumdal detects an unusual odor emanating from the beast. Meanwhile, Chuck Buck cautions his father about the creature's extending limbs. He warns of its far-reaching strikes, leaving Gumdal apprehensive. Observing the brat's fury, his anger is understandable. After all, he was recently humiliated, defeated like a powerless child. Equally irritated, our young heroine protrudes her tongue, mocking him. Enraged, the brat charges towards her. Gumdal swiftly retrieves her daughter, attempting to repel the child. To his astonishment, the youngster abruptly halts, stumbling backward. Gumdal is astonished by this unexpected retreat. To witness the creature recoil in fear, from a mere flick of the leg, he ponders if the child is truly feeble. Yet, something feels amiss. A weakling would have fled like the rest. Gumdal is perplexed by the boy's presence. The child's gaze shifts towards a nearby disturbance. He's mesmerized by the sight of his mother, the offspring of the labyrinth's overlord. Even Gumdal perceives the boy's altered demeanor, a palpable shift, ominous in nature. Meanwhile, amidst the ferocious combat, as the chaos subsides, Hera's utter defeat is evident. She's incapacitated, unable to proceed. Mama clings to consciousness, driven to the absolute limit. The Cyclops seizes Mama. He leers, making it clear her sacrifices, her family's devotion, are meaningless. Any concealed strength she possesses is futile. It's all for naught. He'll ensure she plumbs the depths of despair. His fetid maw gapes open, poised to devour Mama. Suddenly, Gumdal commands everyone's attention, brandishing the infant aloft. His voice booms. Gumdal issues an ultimatum: release his spouse, or the child faces peril. The little one will be jeopardized. The golden-eyed behemoth recognizes the creature as the dungeon master's offspring. Gumdal's intentions remain a mystery. Gumdal's actions reveal his true objective. Resolutely, he proclaims the child as captive. If the vile creature desires his son's survival, he must liberate his wife immediately. The monster scoffs, deeming Gumdal's ultimatum insignificant. He holds no authority. He's no overlord. Why should he value the child's life? The one-eyed fiend's misjudgment becomes apparent. His finger twitches involuntarily as the infant's cries persist. The dungeon master reclaims her physical form. The one-eyed monster feels his dominion slipping. Infant and dungeon master exchange knowing glances. Shared memories flood their consciousness. Maternal love washes over the mother. Overwhelmed, tears stream down her face. The yellow-eyed villain is bewildered. How could such a feeble sentiment usurp his control? A trivial emotion defies his power. The possessed body rebels against his will. The child's influence incites unrest within her. Mama's grip loosens, sending her plummeting. With sheer determination, the one-eyed menace regains control of his appendage, attempting a counterattack with his razor-sharp talons. But before he can unleash his fury, Hira's hurled axe violently severs his hand. This provides Mama a crucial opening for vengeance. She inflicts a grievous wound upon the fiend, crippling him instantly. Gumdal marvels as his wife achieves the unthinkable. She has triumphed against insurmountable odds. Hera shares in the astonishment. Meanwhile, their little one delights, witnessing her mother's victory over the beast. But Mama knows the battle isn't over. She prepares for another strike. Her next target, the yellow-eyed parasite. The parasite swiftly counters, lashing out and gashing Mama's hand. Yet, Mama remains undeterred. She strikes back with renewed ferocity. Her venomous talons seek to obliterate the scoundrel. Just as her attack is poised to land, Dayan springs forth, shielding her father in the nick of time. Mother is utterly blindsided. She never anticipated this wretch would remain alive. Before she can muster a response, agonizing pain surges through her appendages. Her excessive exertion becomes evident. Overwhelmed, she crumples powerlessly. Triumph was tantalizingly close. She nearly vanquished her foe. Yet, she falters at the precipice of victory. As she succumbs, the Dungeon Master's inanimate form begins to list. Devoid of a host, it cannot maintain its position. Both bodies crash to the earth in unison. After the debris settles, Gomdal and his offspring seek out Mother. To their astonishment, their colossal matron stands before them. Mama glared at the Dungeon Master's inert form. Frustration surged. The parasite eluded her grasp. Yet, relief washed over her. The battle concluded. But the Dungeon Master's demise proved premature. Life lingered, though feeble and depleted. Mama seized the chance to obliterate the Dungeon Master. Permanently silencing him would simplify acquiring necessities. She extended her lethal claws, menacingly, ready to incapacitate the Dungeon Master's body. Poised to strike, the Dungeon Master's distraught offspring halted her. He witnessed his mother, vulnerable and near death. Mother and son yearned to connect, their exchange desperate. Anguish and affection resonated in their voices. All observed the poignant reunion of mother and child. The child's sorrow erupted, uncontrollable. He pleaded for his mother's survival. Ultimately, Mama wavers and relents, for the maternal bond surpasses all understanding. But just as she seemingly abandons them, Mama swiftly injects the Dungeon Master with venom, leaving the child utterly distraught, sobbing uncontrollably. Helpless, the youngster pounds on Mama. Even Chukbak appears disturbed by the poignant display. His father offers comfort, assuring him there's no cause for alarm. Mommy is providing aid. Gumdal's reassurance rings true. She was indeed assisting the comatose mother. Following Mama's injection, the Dungeon Master awakens. Her first action, beckoning her son. The boy bursts into tears. Reaching out, he embraces his mother fiercely. Mama's heart swells with warmth. She recognizes that despite the woman's monstrous nature, she's not unlike herself. Simply a woman devoted to her offspring, like any other. Her own child then calls to her. Turning, she's instantly embraced by a fervent Chukbuk. With everyone secure, the girl decides to head homeward. They begin their quiet departure. Chukbuk bids a heartfelt farewell to the youngster. The kid mirrors his gesture in return. Dion strolls beside her father. She cautiously inquires about the Dungeon Master's fate. Her father consoles her, explaining he's already consumed sufficient life force. His sights are now fixed on Mama and their daughter. Reclaiming his body will complete him. He'll no longer require external sustenance. He commands her to mobilize the cannibal tribe. They must retrieve the mother and child. Desolate, monster-infested streets stretch before them. Our group struggles to traverse the monstrous horde. Softly, as Hera appears wounded, crimson liquid oozes from her form. Street-roaming creatures swiftly detect the aroma. A frenzy of excitement consumes them. Before chaos erupts, they reach the sanctuary of their dwelling. Relief washes over them after the harrowing ordeal. Mama rejoices at their well-being. Gumdal observera sa absence. As they search for her, Hera lies unconscious in the apartment's passage. Her eyes flutter open. Chuck's fearful visage greets her. Buck, the sweet girl, worries immensely for Hera. Distraught, she inadvertently inflicts pain upon Hera with her touch. Hera rises astonishingly, Her physique, remarkably sculpted, she appears anything but feminine. Aside from her, shall we say, ample bosom, Mama observes from the doorway. Gamdal, relieved by Hera's awakening, summons her to the tempting meal. The noodles appear delectable. The large man is visibly moved, nearly weeping. He savors each mouthful with gusto. He's forgotten the last taste of such exquisite fare. Mama sits silently, seemingly irked. A hint of annoyance clouds her face. Perhaps she's envious of the other's feast. Before Hera partakes, she realizes her attire is unfamiliar. Chuck Bach explains they laundered her garments, and these belong to her mother. Hera deems the clothes rather juvenile. Gamdal is captivated by her impressive physique. He hadn't noticed her pronounced musculature beneath her jacket, nor her numerous wounds. He concludes she's extraordinary. Her combat prowess no longer astonishes him. Her past battle skills are no longer a mystery. As Chuck Bach embraces Hera, a deformed finger catches her eye. Her own nail appears shorter. She remains silent, continuing her repast. The child scampers off to frolic. Once the girl vanishes, Hera mentions her diminished nail. She inquires if it was trimmed. Gamdal swiftly explains it's been thus since yesterday. They'll investigate upon reaching the settlement. However, he's convinced cannibals pursue his family en route to the village. Even arrival might not guarantee safety. He doubts their security even there. He's about to request Hera's assistance. He desires her presence at Hope Village. He reminds her, pointedly, that she'll receive ample compensation for her services. In return, they simply request her protection for him and Chuck Box until their return from Hope Village. Beaming, he extends a second helping, having devoured the first. She readily accepts, seemingly agreeing to their terms. However, her compliance is a ruse, a playful deception. She subverts his expectations. Her dungeon assistants, she clarifies, doesn't forge camaraderie. They shouldn't presume any alliance. Their survival is of no consequence to her. She won't assist them directly, but vows to accompany them, solely safeguarding Chuck Box. As always, the others are responsible for their own well-being. At last, the imposing man accepts self-reliance. His spouse instantly protests. She questions his ability to manage alone. He swiftly allays her concerns. He boasts of his self-sufficiency. Reassured, Mama redirects her focus to Hera. The woman's persistence is visibly irritating. Hera's fascination with her daughter is baffled, as if Chukbak were her rightful possession. A furious Chukbak bursts in, indignant at being forgotten. Hera swiftly offers companionship. The child's anger melts into delight. Tranquility is fleeting. Her mother intervenes, attempting to dismiss her. Chukbak mirrors her mother's stubbornness. Hera counters, grasping the child's other hand, pulling her in the opposite direction, vying for the child's allegiance. Their antagonism is palpable. This benevolent rivalry benefits Chukbak. Two guardians fiercely devoted to her safety. Unconditionally, their glares could cut like knives. The oblivious dad continues devouring his noodles. He's simply content Hera's accompanying them. His current quest, a 4-passenger vehicle. We shift to a band of tormentors. They pursue a blonde girl relentlessly. Spotting a room, she darts inside for refuge. It's a lavatory, a dead end. Escape routes vanish. Her pursuers swiftly invade the restroom. Suddenly, she's trapped in a terrifying, inescapable predicament. Before witnessing her fate, we return to our protagonists. They meticulously examine every vehicle. Not a single operational car is found. 20 attempts yield nothing. Gumdal is utterly perplexed. Hera urges him forward. She strides ahead resolutely. The large man cautions against such recklessness, particularly as she's still convalescing. But the woman insists on taking action. Gumdal seems unable to dissuade her. Or is he? He abandons his attempts to change her mind. He instructs her to follow his commands, but cautions her to remain close behind. Hera swiftly approaches and delivers a sharp kick to his leg. He recoils in agony. Her point made, she curtly tells him to stay in the rear. As they proceed, Gumdal still feels the throbbing pain. Though he appreciates her assistance, considering her ferocity, he fears she might accidentally kill him. Before any further incidents occur, the mother and daughter are enjoying a moment of reprieve. Within their dwelling, they playfully pass the time, awaiting Gumdal's return with transportation. Resuming their journey, The pair is startled by the young woman's cries. The cries emanate from a nearby apartment complex. Gamdol swiftly glances towards the commotion. Hera abruptly jerks him back, infuriated. She demands if he's forgotten their primary objective. Her irritation is palpable. She questions his urge to assist others, when self-preservation is already a struggle. With an icy glare, she orders him to concentrate on Chukbuk, where she will proceed alone. Despite her fury, he summons the bravery to voice his opinion. He implores her to simply listen. But Hera is consumed by rage, her anger barely contained. Meanwhile, the ruffians have bound the girl. Initially, they contemplate assaulting her. A more pragmatic one suggests preserving her. She might be valuable for bartering. One raises a doubt. What if the settlement rejects her? Well, one of these vile creeps decides to proceed with the initial scheme. They intend to assault her and leave her stranded. Frankly, this scumbag hopes the settlement will reject her as compensation. That way, he can keep her for himself. However, their plot seems to be unraveling, especially with Gamdal's sudden arrival. He's already incapacitated 2 of those repulsive hoodlums. Then he delivers a forceful blow to the one who contemplated violating the innocent girl. The remaining scoundrel flees for dear life. Unbeknownst to them, the fastest runner receives the first impactful punch. Naturally, Hera delivered it. She boldly demands their provisions. These fools make the critical error of defying her. They foolishly attack her, only to receive a brutal beating in return. The young woman expressed her sincere appreciation. On the verge of tears, she introduced herself as Yankee. The large man reciprocated the introduction, introducing himself and Hera. He quickly resumed the conversation, mentioning he'd eavesdropped on her earlier discussion and learned she hailed from Hope Village. Yankee readily confirmed, delighting the big man. His rescue mission felt validated. Saving a villager would surely facilitate Chukbuk's necessary treatment. They revealed their intention to visit Hope Village. Yankee's excitement was palpable. Strong individuals were always warmly welcome. She explained her initial venture was to promote her community. Encountering such dependable people was unexpected. She was certain their leader and mentor would appreciate their presence. The heads of the school catch Gamdal unaware. Just then, a sinister figure attempts a surprise assault, but Ra's swift reflexes thwart the ambush. He halts the impending attack. He's instantly enraged, absolutely furious. He mistakes the pair for adversaries. He demands Yonghee's immediate surrender. Yonghee herself quickly subdues him. She intervenes, identifying them as her rescuers. Not foes, she apologizes for lagging behind. This caused the confusion. The imposing man's stern visage melts into a grin. Her safety is his sole concern, bringing him immense relief. He promptly extends apologies to the duo. Gamdal is perplexed. He recalls the prior menacing threat. Now, the man acts affable and friendly. Gamdal observes something peculiar. The girl trembles uncontrollably. While addressing her teacher, she's drenched in sweat, quivering intensely. Her apologies continue unabated. The unsettling man places his large hand on her delicate shoulder. A sinister smile adorns his face. He offers reassurance, yet ominously advises her to remain close next time. The scoundrel relentlessly grips her shoulder. His cautions persist. The girl hesitantly voices her discomfort. Respite arrives swiftly. Gamdal intervenes, seizing the vile man's hand. Their gazes lock. A silent, fierce battle ensues. Observing the newcomer's demeanor, tension rapidly escalates. Hera mentally prepares to dial for emergency assistance. She braces herself to confront the creep. Aggression isn't always the solution. The larger man opts for caution. Excusis de escalation. He flashes a wide grin, offering a handshake. Suddenly, the murderous aura transforms into a jovial, almost brotherly reunion. A Big Brothers-esque happy gathering. Gamdal seamlessly begins flattering. He lauds Yonghee, having supposedly heard great things about Hope Village. He was apparently captivated by her impassioned speech. Words can't express how profoundly impressed he was by her performance. Not only did she promote the village brilliantly, but she also lauded her exceptional mentor. Yonghee, recognizing Gamdal's blatant exaggeration, decides to humor him. Her instructor inquires about the truth. She flashes a peace sign and nods in agreement, affirming the large man's claims. The imposing brute momentarily glares at her coldly, but then mirrors Gamdal's smile, introducing himself as Suman Beck, a Hope Village instructor. Now, Gamdal steers the conversation. He swiftly inquires of Beck if his kin could gain entry to Hope Village. The mention of relatives astounds Beck. He promptly asks if others accompany him. Gamdal clarifies he has a spouse directly behind him and a daughter. His ailing daughter needs care, so he seeks treatment for her within the village. Hearing that scoundrel claim her as his wife, R.A. glares at him menacingly. Gamdal senses impending doom if he persists. Conversely, Beck confirms Hope Village possesses a physician. He assures her the doctor can examine her. However, entry requires an admission fee. Gamdal has already addressed that matter. That payment, after all, was the sole reason for their perilous dungeon ordeal. Within the dungeon, Beck departs. Driven by the urge to share this revelation, he yearns to be the first to inform the settlement. He vows to reconvene the following day before this very edifice. With that declaration, he departs. But before taking his leave, the youth pauses. He halts abruptly, remembering to compensate her. He pays his dues to Gamdal, offering a gesture of respect. The expedition has yielded fruitful results for Gamdal and Hera. They are now a significant stride closer to acquiring Chuckbox's remedy. He beams with delight and turns towards her. But she swiftly unleashes a brutal kick to his leg. He collapses, groaning in agony. Naturally, a vulgarity escapes his lips after enduring such a vicious blow. She suggests he interpret it as a tender expression of affection from his spouse as they continue their banter. The scene shifts to Instructor Beck and Yoonghee. They traverse a serene hallway. Beck remains astonished by Gamdal's formidable strength. He prides himself on his own exceptional might. Yet, encountering Gamdal firsthand, he recognizes the man's exceptional prowess. His spouse is no pushover either. Her lightning-fast reflexes leave him awestruck. She deftly evades the assault, but a wicked smile spreads across his face. He contemplates how their village desperately requires their unique gifts. He cannot afford to lose them, he's certain. The village elder will be ecstatic to encounter this remarkable duo. Anticipation consumes him. He eagerly awaits the dawn. Morning arrives. Hera's irritated countenance greets us. She's vexed by the oaf's unfinished pack. Meanwhile, the monstrous matriarch meticulously binds her daughter's tiny finger, concealing it completely. A yearning to accompany them on their expedition overwhelms the mother. Her monstrous nature forbids it. She attempts to persuade her child. Finally, Chuckbox acquiesces to her plea to join them. Gamdal vehemently opposes the notion. The monstrous matriarch was once again consumed by sorrow. Even Gamdal was disheartened by her distress. He attempted to console her. He vowed a swift return. A brief wait was all that was required. His spouse pleaded for a promise of his safe return. Without hesitation, the behemoth readily obliged. A tender kiss upon her head sealed the vow. A wave of melancholy washed over the mother. She yearned for normalcy, to freely explore the world with her loved ones. Lost in contemplation, father and daughter bid their farewells. Even the typically stoic Hera offered a rare smile. And with that, they departed. Their absence ignited a longing for an ordinary existence, to experience joyful adventures as a family. But her reality confined her to isolation, confined to the dimly illuminated flat. She recognizes her own crucial part to play. Acting swiftly, her intentions remain unclear, but hopefully clarity will soon emerge. In the meantime, the trio embarks on Instructor Bayak's vehicle. Gamdal questions the doctor's competence. Beck promptly defends his aptitude, asserting he's an indispensable figure in their community. Yet the underlying reason persists. Gamdal remains uncertain of the outcome, but desires a favorable resolution for his offspring. Returning to the apartment, the monstrous mother disrobes and focuses intently. She senses a grotesque appendage within her. Apparently, it's linked to the cannibalistic tribe's chieftain. His yearning for his body's return now becomes comprehensible. Conversely, the flesh-eating leader swiftly focuses and pinpoints the mother's whereabouts. Having pinpointed her location, he rallies his flesh-eating comrades. Dayan spearheads the gruesome expedition. Meanwhile, our group reaches Hope Village. Nearing the building, Beck instructs everyone to leave their belongings in the vehicle. Upon disembarking, assuring them of their retrieval later. Despite reaching the village, Gamdal remains vigilant. He discreetly signals Hera for coordinated action. She responds with an irked glance. Resenting his commanding tone, Gamdal turns to his sweetheart, inquiring about his prior instructions. A brief silence ensues. She swiftly confirms her recollection. Launching into the charade, She instantly addresses Hera as mommy. Hera reluctantly participates in the ruse. A blush creeps onto her cheeks. Yet she persists in addressing him affectionately to maintain the facade. Despite Gumdal's clear perception of her strained performance, her acting remains utterly unconvincing. The vehicle halts abruptly. Upon the van's rear doors swinging open, a throng of villagers eagerly awaited the newcomers. Gumdal, overwhelmed by the multitude, sought clarification from their guide. The instructor reassured him, explaining the village's welcoming custom. The locals possessed an innate inquisitiveness towards outsiders. Their presence posed no threat. The assembly was entirely benign. Despite these assurances, a sense of unease lingered within Gumdal. Hera, meanwhile, appeared visibly irked. The village elder advanced, extending greetings. Introducing himself as Hyung Jun Kim, the leader, he expressed his delight at their arrival. As the villagers unloaded the van's contents, one struggled with a bag, a weight easily managed by Gumdal. The discrepancy did not go unnoticed. The village exuded vibrancy, and even Gumdal succumbed to its inviting ambience. The elder explained this was merely daily life in their settlement. He expressed delight at the newcomer's comfort, a feeling he'd sorely missed since the Cataclysm's onset. This haven, he declared, was built on unwavering hope and tireless labor. Initially, during the first 5 years, survival was paramount, strife commonplace. Clashes were routine occurrences. Maintaining order proved challenging at the outset. Yet, gradually, the villagers forged unbreakable bonds. They became akin to family in his eyes. However, R.A. harbored lingering suspicions about the man. The elder abruptly shifted focus to Chuck Buck and her care after a brief journey. He gestured towards a building designated hospital. He acknowledged its outward appearance was humble, but insisted the physician within was exceptionally skilled. Gumdal conveyed his appreciation. Once the elder departed, he softly voices his apprehensions. Everything feels amiss, unsettling. Hera senses it too. A palpable aura of suspicion hangs heavy. The absent security is immediately noticeable. The entrance is utterly unprotected. No lights de terre nocturnal creatures. Villagers seem utterly unarmed. Defenses are practically non-existent, amplifying the already dubious atmosphere. Hera prioritizes Chuck's immediate care. They swiftly enter the shadowy building. This supposed sanctuary, a hospital. Descending, darkness deepens with each stride. They reach a ward engulfed in absolute blackness. It's baffling. A subterranean hospital seems utterly illogical. Navigating the gloom, Jukebox trips unexpectedly. He stumbles, collapsing in agony. She discovers the obstruction isn't merely a random item. A subtle crimson shimmer catches her eye, triggering an immediate surge of primal survival instincts. Her bandaged finger throbs intensely, its nail morphing into a razor-sharp appendage. Reacting purely on instinct, she strikes, piercing the spectral figure with her honed nail. Before the apparition's identity is revealed, the scene shifts to an external dialogue. Instructor by AQ discusses the trio with the elder. The old man's assessment is unveiled as a trial, a necessary requirement for entry into the Food Day festivities. Bake voices apprehension, questioning the repercussions of refusal. Even with success, the elder calmly declares that in such an event, their disposal and skin utilization would be adequate, sufficient for their needs. He directs BIAC to exhibit particular kindness towards the youngster, escorting the pair, seemingly. Their leader has a vested interest in her. The focus shifts back to Chuck Buck. Her shriek alerts Gumdal and Hera. A lurking figure seizes the girl's hand beneath the covers. He interrogates the child, inquiring about her actions. At that very instant, Hera tackles the shrouded man, pinning him down. Dagger brandished, she compels him to divulge his identity. The blanket is yanked away, revealing a petrified individual. Under duress, he proclaims himself a physician. Hera remains dubious of his claim. Gumdal subsequently offers a remorseful bow, atoning for the misapprehension. Yet, the doctor struggles to compose himself and relentlessly criticizes the group for their oversight. Observing this man's absurd appearance, slumbering with a juvenile pillow, Gumdal was utterly unprepared for such an encounter. Conversely, the physician is enraged by their assault and the disturbance of his slumber. He demands an apology from R.A. and the child. It's evident both women are hesitant to comply with this man's unreasonable request. But the arrogant fellow simply sneers, unable to retaliate. R.A. begrudgingly offers an apology. Unwillingly, of course, The forced apologies fail to appease the physician. He orders their immediate departure. As he continues to berate them, his focus abruptly shifts to Chuck's finger. Something piques his curiosity. His intrigue is immediate. Moments later, he meticulously examines her digit. Following a comprehensive assessment, he confessed his bewilderment regarding her condition. Naturally, this enraged Hera, who seized his collar, poised to throw him down. Her fury intimidated the physician. He hastily offered an explanation. Her affliction was exceedingly uncommon, he stated, typically found in victims of monstrous bites, or when tainted blood contaminated an open wound. Yet, she bore no bite marks or discernible scars. Such a case was unprecedented in his experience. Presently, her physical state was sound, but he couldn't guarantee its stability. For the time being, they would observe her progress during their village stay. Gondal then implored the doctor to maintain confidentiality regarding his daughter's ailment. A physician wouldn't conceal such information. However, intrigued by the ailment, he vows discretion. The child's small hand covers her father's large one. She inquires if her condition causes his concern. Is her illness truly dire? He consoles her, then seeks fresh air outside. A moment of respite and joy. She frolics in the sand. They share a silent moment. Uncertainty overwhelms the man. Her diagnosis remains elusive. Their journey has been arduous. Should he burden the mother with grim news? Is revealing the truth prudent? Despair threatens to consume him. Hera intervenes, urging him towards his daughter, even in dire straits. When hope seems lost, a parent's duty remains, to be the child's unwavering support. This ignites a spark within the hulking man. He abruptly strikes himself to regain composure. With newfound resolve, she inquires about his plans. The behemoth replies with unwavering assurance. They will undoubtedly discover a path if they commence excavation. As they deliberate, Yonghe conceals herself behind a column. Her countenance betrays apprehension. To decipher her presence, we revisit a prior instance. The village elder instructs her to monitor the recently arrived family. He seeks to ensure the village's safety. Their visit to the physician's office presents an opportunity for observation. Any noteworthy findings demand immediate reporting. She pursued them to the clinic and also discovered Chuck Box's afflicted digit. She fidgeted nervously. A sudden tap on her shoulder startled her. She nearly jumped out of her skin. Whirling around, she found her mother, who inquired about her presence there. Yonghe fabricated a story, claiming she was merely strolling. Her mother saw through the deception. She pressed her daughter, demanding to know why she observed that family. She suspected. The headmaster had instructed her daughter. Her intuition proved correct. Her daughter offered no response. This infuriated her mother. She reiterated her frequent warning against blindly obeying the village leader. Finally, her daughter retorted, insisting that all her actions, including publicizing the village, it was her choice, she emphatically declares. Her mother should cease blaming the headmaster for everything. She reminds her mother of their shared community ties. One day, she'll achieve recognition and importance. Just as her mother experienced a fortunate turn of events, she too anticipates a similar blessing from the headmaster. She's certain of it. This intensifies her mother's fury. She strikes her daughter on the head. The reprimand continues. Her perceived miracle, her mother insists, is a deceptive facade. After enduring a torrent of blows, the daughter flees in tears. Vanishing into the distance, she cries out for purpose and direction. She implores her mother for understanding and support. If her father were present, she adds, he would beam with pride. This statement infuriates her mother beyond measure. Consumed by rage, she hurled stones at her daughter, seething at her offspring's words. The girl fled, abandoning her despairing mother, whose only desire was her daughter's understanding. Honestly, this seemingly tranquil village is utterly deranged, absolutely teeming with lunatics. Under the cloak of night, Gondal was utterly astonished by the lavish meal. Such extravagance was beyond his wildest dreams. Father and daughter shared a silent longing, wishing for a shared moment. If only Monster Mama could partake in this feast. Meanwhile, Hera observed, irritated by the fool's oblivious joy. Within this unsettling place, she cautioned him, this village was unsuitable for Chuck. Buck, even the physician, remained ignorant of her affliction. Hera harbored dark thoughts. Contemplatin monster mamas de mise. Should she be responsible for Chuck Buck's ailment? Their focus shifts to the overly enthusiastic headmaster. He insists on joining their after-dinner conversation. Chuck Buck clearly overindulged, exceeding her stomach's capacity. She appears ready to burst. Gumdoll expresses astonishment, never expecting sausages in such an establishment. The headmaster proudly declares it's due to local provisions. Nearby ranches and farms supply their needs. Gumdoll inquires about their power source. The headmaster admits to limited generator capacity. Electricity is reserved for essential use only. Eventually, the headmaster redirects the discussion to Chuck Buck's digit. Gumdoll replies, stating, the physician requires further analysis for a remedy. After thoroughly examining Jukebox's finger, he proposes a late-night stroll beyond the village limits. Gumdoll is venturing out in the dead of night seemed unwise. But the elder clarified they routinely left the settlement. Weekly foraging expeditions were necessary. The community's numbers were swelling. Ample provisions were vital for sustenance. Gumdoll still questioned the nocturnal timing, especially with lurking predators. The leader calmly justified their actions. Darkness was their ally. Before Hera and Gumdoll could misinterpret, the sage elaborated. Nightfall was the creature's peak activity. They abandoned their lairs, prowling freely. This distraction provided an opportunity. Villagers could safely infiltrate the beast's domains and procure necessities undisturbed. Hera was dubious of the elder's reasoning. She eyed him skeptically, inquiring, how do we navigate that horde unscathed? Without meeting our demise this time, she demands truthful responses, weary of the charade. The large man hastily offers apologies to the elder. He explains her heightened sensitivity. The headmaster remains unfazed by her sharp tone. He asserts his statement was no jest. What the hell? Gumdoll thought. He, too, believed the old man was merely jesting. The jerk smirks, confident in his deception. He'll unveil the Foods Day phenomenon. It's a done deal. While Chuck Buck fools around, he returns to Gumdoll. He questions Gumdoll's belief in the senile man's words. Gumdoll confesses his uncertainty. The old geezer might be fabricating. However, a potential cure for Chuck Buck could emerge. If the old man's claims hold merit, investigation is warranted. Era emphatically décliné participation. Gumdoll expresses no surprise at her refusal, particularly given her evident. Well, Hera readily confesses, stating it's beyond the comprehension of the childless. Nevertheless, she offers him well wishes and anticipates positive tidings. The large gentleman is perplexed by her behavior, but he vows to do everything necessary for Chuck Buck. With night's eventual downfall, Gumdoll finds himself second-guessing his foolish choice. Why did I disregard Hera's advice? Consumes his thoughts as he stands frozen. Before him looms the unsettling headmaster. Suddenly, the elder erupts in laughter. The old man instructs Gumdoll to observe his surroundings. Inhale the crisp night air. Savor the gentle zephyr. Appreciate the moon's luminous embrace. But Gumdoll remains unmoved. Every soul present, including himself. His body trembles, sensing the myriad of lurking horrors. Meanwhile, the teacher, the headmaster, and the robed woman remain impassive. The vicinity teems with monstrous figures. Gumdoll is deeply unsettled by a chilling observation. The creatures encircle the crimson-clad individuals, yet refrain from attacking. He also spots children among the red-robed figures, amplifying his unease. A sweeping aerial perspective reveals a startling formation. The red-robed individuals form a protective ring, shielding the other villagers from the monstrous horde. Gumdoll is now certain the headmaster harbors a secret about these creatures. Later, the villagers engage in a heated dispute over their scavenged provisions. One claims prior possession of an item, while another asserts their own ownership. Meanwhile, Instructor Bake discreetly inquires of the principal. Should he commence immediately? The elder affirms with enthusiasm. He declares the time ripe for initiation. With a sly grin, the headmaster snaps his fingers. He proclaims the moment to unveil a marvel. At the finger's snap, the creatures descend upon the townsfolk, though the monsters grapple and subdue. Immobilizing the villagers, they refrain from lethal force. The scene exudes an eerie, premeditated aura. Panic ensues, yet the elder is no stranger to such terror etched on human faces. He savors it with undiminished relish. He delights in humanity's fragility and helplessness. Their frantic pleas for mercy amidst terror are both wretched and oddly endearing. Yet, a tinge of disappointment touches the elder. The chosen instructor exhibits minimal response. The educator selected, however, Teacher Beck, beamed with pride, urging his superior to observe the front lines. The headmaster's attention shifted. His eyes widened in astonishment. Gomdal, single-handedly, was decimating the monstrous horde. He dispatched the creatures with effortless ease. The tide had turned. Now, the monsters whimpered and trembled in terror. His sheer power overwhelmed them. Gomdal was perplexed. Why this sudden, unprovoked onslaught? More curious still, the crimson-robed figures remained motionless. Their inaction fueled Gomdal's suspicions. Had this been orchestrated all along? He knew nocturnal wanderings in this vicinity were perilous, but not this treacherous. He hadn't anticipated such a formidable foe. A beast lunged, snapping at his hand. Gomdal seizes the creature like discarded refuse. He hurls it aside with disdainful ease. More beasts spring from the shadows, ambushing Gomdal. With lightning reflexes, he executes a whirlwind spin. Each head receives a crushing blow. The ravenous horde collapses in a heap. Witnessing this display of raw power, the principal is rendered speechless. Such captivating prowess is a rare sight. Now observing this spectacle, clarity dawns upon him. He grasps Instructor Beck's profound admiration for Gomdal. Gomdal repels the monsters with a mere knapsack. His only weapon, a simple backpack, a feat defying human limitations. Despite Gomdal's extraordinary might, his mortality remains. The relentless onslaught begins to overwhelm him. Defeat appears imminent. The monsters prepare to tear him asunder. The elder resolved to end the mayhem. But before intervening, astonishment paralyzed him. The Jigachad's monstrous foes were annihilated. Instantly, Gomdal, armed with a flashlight and axe, eviscerated the creatures. He momentarily repelled them, but the wounded beasts counterattacked. He'd missed their vital spots. Escape seemed impossible. Their regeneration was unstoppable. Yet a solution had to exist. He needed to concentrate. Hera's warning about the old fool resurfaced. Regret for ignoring her washed over him. He yearned for Chuck Buck's mother's abilities. He craved Hera's prowess. He needed every ounce of strength. He had to summon his inner fortitude, solely to safeguard his little girl. But alas, he accepts the futility of such hopes. As the horde advances relentlessly, sinister figures in crimson cowls observe impassively. Gomdal, feeling utterly trapped, resolves to take the vile elder down with him. Mustering every ounce of remaining power, he strives to outpace and overcome his assailants. Yet their overwhelming numbers subdue him. Confronting l'imminent démise, memories resurface. He recalls his pledge to Monster Mama. Unconditionally, he vowed to cherish her and their offspring. In exchange, he sought her hand in marriage. Monster Mama consented to become his bride. Now, incapacitated and vulnerable, despair washes over him. His promise of protection now broken. Unexpectedly, however, the elder commenced applauding. Abruptly, the creatures vanished. Their retreat was as swift as their arrival. Gomdal and the inhabitants were spared. Though unharmed, the ordeal left an indelible scar on their psyches. Conversely, the headmaster declared it a manifestation of Hope Village's miracle. Due to this divine intervention, all were safe and well. Upon reflection, they acknowledged their unscathed state. Not a single mark marred their flesh. The elder resumed his discourse. He spoke of a prosperous existence, a future devoid of beasts, brimming with optimism. Instead of perpetual dread, he vowed that Hope Village held the key to their aspirations. He pledged to elevate their prospects. Their faith in him was the sole requirement. Predictably, the fresh recruits weep openly. They readily entrust their lives to the elder, prepared to sacrifice everything for their community. Simultaneously, Gomdal discerns the geezer's cunning ploy. He deduces that the patriarch exploited fear to gain the villagers' blind faith. Gomdal concludes these individuals pose a grave threat. The setting shifts to the shadowy, subterranean infirmary. Chuck Buck rests in his bed. The physician remains concealed underneath. The eccentric doctor struggles with slumber. Sleep evades the disturbed practitioner, especially with women atop him. As the doctor's grievances continue, Hera silences him with a menacing glare. This suffices to subdue the lecherous scoundrel. With the whining quelled, both women anticipate a long-awaited tranquil respite. The setting shifts to Mama Monster's dwelling. Night has fallen, and Mama Monster is convinced the flesh-eating clan will inevitably pursue her. She suspects they might utilize the implanted tendril to pinpoint her whereabouts. She contemplates how that sallow, jaundiced fiend demanded the return of his corporeal form. She has no memory of that day's events, nor any recollection of her prior existence. Lost in contemplation, a grotesque entity abruptly breaches her sanctuary. Mama leaps aside, retaliating with a lethal strike. Observing the hirsute monstrosity, Mama recognizes it from the subterranean prison. She's baffled by its knowledge of her location, and how she failed to sense its approach. Mama's bewilderment deepens when the beast vocalizes. The creature's initial utterance confirms its awareness of Mama's precise position. Furthermore, the monster appears insulted by Mama's limited recollection of it as merely a hairy beast. The beast boasted of a long-awaited showdown with Mama, a one-on-one duel, but Mama wasn't interested. In a flash, she sees the creature's throat slamming it earthward. The monster's telepathy infuriated Mama. It drove her to the brink. The creature's confession worsened matters. It confirmed mind-reading, prompting Mama's interrogation. Cannibal tribe or accomplice? Mama demanded. Are there others? The hirsute beast remained silent. It opted for a counterattack instead of a response. Forced to defend herself, Mama released the beast, and it fled. Mama swiftly retaliated with her needles. Her venomous projectiles proved ineffective. The shaggy monstrosity gloated, claiming omniscience about Mama. Mama remained ignorant of the creature's true nature. Abruptly, the beast changed the subject, nonchalantly highlighting Mama's idyllic life, a loving spouse and a cherished child. She even alludes to Mama's family's village excursion, accompanied by the axe-wielding woman, no less. And to add insult to injury, the hirsute beast reveals knowledge of the flesh-eating clan pursuing Mama. Mama remains clueless about the creature's insinuations. If she's not affiliated with these voracious savages, then what is her true identity? The hairy entity undergoes a swift metamorphosis. Her copious body hair constricts tightly. Following this fleeting transfiguration, she lunges aggressively at Mama. Mama is utterly bewildered, recognizing an uncanny resemblance to the monstrous being. But before witnessing their encounter, Eren Yeager engages in a fierce battle. We're transported to Mama's recollections. She recounts a constant sense of surveillance. Yet upon investigation, initially, nothing appeared amiss. Fatigue fueled her paranoia, she assumed. Her assumption proved incorrect. A chilling gaze persistently haunted her. Finally, it seems, those enigmatic stares gain clarity. The creature hurls Mama from the building. Mama swiftly retaliates with a powerful kick. The woman crashes to the earth below. Mga lanze unan. Assuming the fall was fatal, she's quickly disproven. A venom-like hybrid emerges unscathed. Mama appears to have exhausted her options. Her paralyzing venom proved ineffective. She even tried severing the beast's limb, but nothing fazed the bizarre aberration. Yet, the mother persevered. She believed she could vanquish the hirsute fiend. But the creature, seemingly privy to her thoughts, tauntingly declared her efforts futile. According to the abomination, victory was beyond her grasp. To exacerbate matters, it boasted of sensing her every emotion. As dread consumed her, the grotesque entity reveled in it. Finally, she fled with utmost haste. Instinct screamed of imminent danger. She sensed the monster's malevolence. But escape proved impossible. Before reaching safety, the vile being impaled her. It proclaimed her denial pointless, demanding she confront reality. The beast relentlessly mauls the poor mother. The onslaught continues without mercy. Gore splatters as the creature's blows rip through her. Finally, Mama succumbs to blood loss and grievous wounds. The Mama doppelganger is enraged. The real Mama ignores her, fueling her fury. Yearning for acceptance consumes her. Meanwhile, Mama feels life ebb away. Cherished memories flood her consciousness. As death approaches, her thoughts drift to her child's birth on that catastrophic day. Within the flashback, her newborn, covered in hair, mirrors the hirsute monster. Mama abruptly awakens from the horrific dream. Perspiration drenches her. Before regaining composure, or processing the disjointed images, she sees the flesh-eating horde looming above. They drag Mama outside. Dion impulsively strikes Mama with a forceful blow. The foolish attack results in a gruesome gash on Dion's hand. Courtesy of Mama's razor-sharp fangs, Thwarted, Dion resorts to a barrage of kicks. A cannibalistic tribesman expresses his perverse attraction to Mama, finding her alluring. Her motherhood only amplifies his depraved interests. He finds the combination exceptionally appealing. Mama's disgust is evident. She would never consort with such a vile individual. She retaliates with a debilitating groin kick, inflicting excruciating pain upon the repulsive man. Dion's attempted counterattack earns her a brutal kick, propelling her into the wall. Mama seizes this fleeting chance and flees with utmost haste. Dion's rage ignites at their repeated humiliation. She furiously commands Rin to pursue Mama. The buxom woman remains confident in their ability to recapture their quarry. Escape is a futile dream for these souls. Ultimately, the tentacle embedded in Mama's chest serves as a perpetual tracker. Despite Mama's desperate flight, Dion delivers a crushing blow to her back. However, Dayan soon realizes her target was merely a common infected. Mama retaliates with a vicious slash across Dayan's back. In response, the lecherous monster, previously emasculated, lunges at Mama, but he too suffers a gaping wound across his abdomen. Next, a behemoth of a man charges. His forceful punch sends Mama sprawling. She swiftly recovers, regaining her footing. Dion and her cohorts appear battered, but Rin facilitates their rapid healing. Even Mama is perplexed by the astonishing regenerative speed. An unprecedented sight unfolds before her. Dion then invokes Mama's kin to further provoke her. She alleges knowledge of their presence in Hope Village. Dion's sinister smile reveals her malicious intent. She harbors wicked plans for Mama's loved ones. The threat against her family enrages Mama. This vile menace pushes Mama over the edge. Consumed by fury, she attacks Dion. Her impulsive action leaves her vulnerable. The lecherous fiend seizes the opportunity to pierce Mama's abdomen. A single brutal blow lands. Mama recovers and unleashes her appendages. The depraved creature uses his own tentacle to ensnare Mama. He binds her completely. Dion's vulgar smirk appears as Mama is restrained. The area is overrun by grotesque monsters. Dion revels in her triumph. Anticipating her ultimate retribution, she yearns to dismantle Mama. As these words escape her lips, hideous creatures sever Mama's hands. The helpless mother suffers excruciating torment. This vile wretch revels in the spectacle. Dion contemplates claiming Mama as a pet once her father concludes his brutalization. However, their scheme faces unforeseen complications. The fools detect an approaching presence. Before a response is possible, Young endures a savage assault. She crumples to the earth. The single strike leaves her mangled and bloody. Her companions are utterly astonished. This enigmatic figure fell dying with one blow. Nearby, undead recoil in terror. The mysterious person's identity is undeniable. Behold, the dungeon master and her offspring arrive. The matriarch arrives to rescue another and rejoin her daughter. Her son, predictably, is restless for amusement. Dayan's squad is unnerved by this formidable adversary. Even Monster Mama is baffled by the dungeon master's presence. At this particular juncture, she lacks the capacity to confront the dungeon master while entangled with these foolish goons. Our Mama seems oblivious to the dungeon master's amicable relationship with her. She perceives her as a fresh menace. The lecherous one inquires about Rin's plan. The other monsters share the same bewildered look. Rin, summoning her courage, urges composure. Their objective isn't to battle the dungeon master. They only require Mama, possessor of their father's remains. She orders her capture for their father's sake. At Rin's behest, the monsters charge at Mama. The impish child declares his eagerness to frolic. His mother recognizes the peril. Her colossal limbs obliterate the encroaching monsters. They surge towards Mama. Her mighty hands decimate nearby zombies. But Mama Rin's face is slick with perspiration. A realization dawns. The dungeon master solely targets her kin. Even Mama is baffled. Understanding quickly arrives. The dungeon master's smile reveals his intentions. The cannibal tribe braces for confrontation. Rin urges an immediate assault. Lesser monsters recoil in terror. They flee in panic. The sight of gigantic hands instills dread. Simultaneously, the cannibals' elite launch a ferocious attack. Their full might is unleashed, but the lecherous one is swiftly decapitated. Mama's hand delivers a fatal blow. The behemoth is enraged by his comrade's demise. He unleashes a ferocious blow, his colossal hand plummeting with brutal force. The earth below splinters and cracks. But Mama has vanished, elusive as smoke. The impact misses its mark entirely. The behemoth frantically scans his surroundings, seeking his quarry. He hesitates to strike blindly, fearful of harming his own kin in the ensuing mayhem. But the colossal fool remains oblivious. Mama lurks directly behind him, a silent predator. Realization dawns too late. Mama's venomous assault triggers a horrifying meltdown. Before he can mount a defense, Mama prepares to impale the wretch's skull with her needle-sharp weapon. Later, Dion stirs from unconsciousness. Her eyes flutter open, clouded with confusion. She sees both Mamas towering above her. Dread consumes her as the horrific truth unfolds. Her loved ones have been butchered, reduced to gory fragments. Even the cannibal clan's inner circle has been annihilated. She trembles before the monstrous Mama's menacing presence, pressuring her to divulge all her knowledge. Overwhelmed, Dion blurts out every crucial detail. Hope Village, she reveals, is their secondary sanctuary. She confirms witnessing Mama's kin there. The scene abruptly shifts to Hope Village. The recent arrivals have all returned, having completed their assigned trial. Due to this ordeal, the headmaster has garnered immense trust. Concurrently, Gondal remains fixated on the talking creatures. The headmaster's articulate monsters disturb him. He's aware that informing Hera would be futile. Their options are limited. Suddenly, an enigmatic woman beckons him. She proposes a meeting at the hospital. Later, she arrives as promised. Hera awaits, prepared for the encounter. Upon sitting, she identifies herself as Yongju Li, Yonghe's mother. She heard tales of Gumdal from her daughter. Gumdal immediately observed the woman's missing right arm. She offered a left-handed greeting. Instead of a handshake, Hera scoffed. The tension thickened. Yang Zhou, however, inquired about Gumdal's opinion. Regarding Food Day's marvel, did he find it wondrous? Gumdal was perplexed by the peculiar question. He dismissed the notion of miracles. To his surprise, she shared his skepticism about the supposed miracle she feared he might be enamored with. The self-proclaimed principal, an old fool. Finding a kindred spirit brought her relief. Gumdal urged her to divulge all she knew and the headmaster's true activities. She reveals he uses a deceptive facade of innocence to ensnare individuals. He either sacrifices them to creatures or subjects them to monstrous transformations. He's essentially a ruthless elder, she clarifies, the architect of the flesh-eating clan. The mere mention of this tribe stuns Gumdal. Even Hera recoils at the name. Gumdal seeks verification. Is this sanctuary governed by these man-eaters? Yangzhou calmly affirms. The settlement's mundane appearance masks a horrifying truth. It's a breeding ground for horrors. Hera's doubts intensify. A sense of unease washes over her. Yangzhou's disclosure of sensitive information to newcomers perplexes her. She met them mere hours ago. She demands complete transparency. Yangzhou offers full disclosure. Hera announces her imminent departure. The large man is taken aback. Chuck's predicament remains unresolved. Hera cautioned Gumdal against lingering. Their predicament was already precarious. Trouble brewed before the healing commenced. Upon departing, she suggested the physician could serve as a valuable captive. She intended to pilfer necessary provisions. The village would be their unwilling supplier. Furthermore, Hera yearned to eliminate the woman immediately. The frightened woman swallowed hard. Hera's intense gaze was palpable. Gumdal attempted to quell Hera's fury. But the doctor, target of Hera's murderous intent, admonished everyone to moderate their speech. Even in the brute's slumber, caution was advised. He highlighted the facility's comprehensive equipment. Every imaginable tool was at their disposal. Yet, Chuck Buck's ailment remained challenging. He questioned if returning the child home would benefit her recovery. Yangzhou concurred, cautioning that impulsive actions from Hera could jeopardize Chuck Buck's timely treatment. Her condition could deteriorate. Chuckbot might become a monstrous, yet adorable, being. While a cute monster sounds appealing to some, it's unacceptable to Hera. Enraged, she seizes Yonghi's throat. Both men plead with Hera to reconsider. She's fixated on how Yongju discovered Chuckbuck's secret. Only the physician was privy to the illness. The doctor insists Yongju is trustworthy. Hera remains unconvinced. Consumed by fury, she'll eradicate any potential threat. Their future is at stake. Her grip tightens around Yangju's neck. She demands answers about the principal's knowledge. The terrified woman replies, "The principal, a menacing figure, hunts Chuck Buck. Escape won't guarantee safety. He'll unleash monstrous pursuers." Despite her pleas, Hera's hold only intensified. Desperate, Yangju unleashed a blood-curdling shriek. She vowed to provide Hera with anything medical care, sustenance, anything at all, in return for a single act. To spare her daughter, she implored Hera to eliminate the elder. The men observed the frantic mother in stunned silence. Even Hera became hushed. Gradually, her fury abated. Her iron grip on the woman's throat loosened. Hera consented to Yangju's terms, but demanded Yangju uphold her end of the bargain. She offered her hand in a gesture of reconciliation and helped her to her feet. Unbeknownst to them, Chuck Bach had been conscious throughout, secretly eavesdropping on the adults' conversation. Later, Yangju sought medical attention. Her neck ached incessantly, and Yangju couldn't find relief. Despite her constant complaints, the physician remarked on her fortunate escape. Just a minor neck ache. The physician questioned her choice. He emphasized the dangers of the flesh-eating clan, a perilous gamble. He probed for second thoughts. Furthermore, Chuck Bach's treatment remained a mystery. Her ailment's origin was unknown. Yet, Yangju seemed unfazed. She trusted the doctor's intellect. His ingenuity would prevail. Regret was absent. Her daughter's well-being fueled her resolve. Her father's legacy guided her. This was her atonement, unraveling this woman's history. 3 years prior, across barren landscapes, her family journeyed together, foraging for sustenance, dodging monstrous threats. Their destination, the village her spouse had spoken of. Hope Village, a beacon in their arduous journey. Young Hee, the little girl, succumbed to hunger's pangs. Her father urged patience, assured her destination near. Almost there, he promised. He gestured towards her mother, whose resilience defied their dire circumstances. Yangju yearned to sacrifice herself, preserving resources for her child. At last, they reached Hope Village. Her husband's guidance had led them. Minsago's unwavering optimism fueled her survival. Upon arrival, the village gates swung open. The headmaster greeted them, a broad smile illuminating his face. A warm welcome embraced them. All, including the headmaster, exuded joy at their arrival. For Yangju, it felt surreal, a stark contrast to the infernal nightmare outside. The community radiated joy and comfort, an echo of pre-apocalyptic tranquility. Mama dismissed her anxieties, overwhelmed with profound solace. Gratitude washed over her for their safe arrival. For the first time in an eternity, a flicker of optimism ignited within her. Tears flowed unrestrained that day. The thought of her family reclaiming normalcy, finding serenity in Hope Village, felt like an impossible dream. Once frail, Yanggi blossomed, robust and vibrant, playing with peers. Her spouse became the settlement spokesperson, guiding its prosperity, thanks to their kin and fellow residents. She too mended, embracing the duty of nurturing new arrivals. The physician's inaugural visit to the village left him captivated, yet slightly skeptical. Witnessing their intimacy sparked a strange unease within him, a baffling vexation he couldn't quite decipher. The reason for this disquiet remained elusive. The headmaster's revelation became Yangju's turning point. A displayed marvel shifted her perspective entirely. Initially, the peculiar trials imposed by the headmaster appeared as the sole path to safeguarding her loved ones. The village felt like an inviolable sanctuary. The flourishing, close-knit community fostered a sense of protection. It offered temporary respite from the external terrors. Her husband's return shattered this illusion. His ashen countenance betrayed profound apprehension. He urgently conveyed a dire warning. The village harbored a danger far greater than she imagined. He had encountered the monstrous entities and unearthed the concealed remains of departed villagers. Their bodies lay hidden within the cellar's depths. He implored her to flee immediately. Failure to escape, he cautioned, would result in their transformation or demise in the basement's darkness. Yet, Yangju adamantly refused to depart. She reminded him that even escaping wouldn't guarantee safety. The outside world held equal peril. Menace and mortality lurked beyond the village. She wouldn't jeopardize her daughter's life further. Exposing her to the brutal, unpredictable environment was unthinkable. If hell awaited, it would be faced within their community. She vowed to safeguard her family within its confines, whatever the consequences. She instructed him to remain, assuring him she'd handle matters. She believed her husband was merely overreacting. She resolved to confront the headmaster directly. She would divulge her husband's revelations. The headmaster listened patiently. To her comfort, he guaranteed everything would be resolved. He commended her candor. He declared that trust formed the village's bedrock. Momentarily, she felt at ease. She trusted the headmaster's sincerity. But that momentary solace vanished into sheer horror. Her beloved husband lay lifeless, savagely disfigured, her own hands severed. She witnessed the gruesome spectacle unfold. The sheer devastation overwhelmed her. Had her husband's reckless cellar descent triggered this nightmare, or had she disregarded ominous warnings? Misplacing her trust in a deceptive individual, the headmaster commenced his narration. He detailed the unusual behavior of cuckoo birds. Cuckoos, he elucidated, deposit their eggs in foreign nests. Unsuspecting avian mothers nurture the cuckoo offspring. Upon hatching, the cuckoo ejects the host's eggs. This ensures the cuckoo chick monopolizes parental care. The devoted mother bird unknowingly raises the intruder. Even as the cuckoo matures, it remains parasitically reliant on its foster parent until it ultimately deserts the nest, leaving only ruin and destruction in its wake. This was a key reason the headmaster despised cuckoos. He reminded her of raising her with unwavering trust, for he held the conviction they were kin. But should anyone emulate a cuckoo's behavior, it ignited a boundless rage within him. He became utterly unhinged. He couldn't fathom the treachery of those who had violated his confidence and were no longer welcome in his community. That day brought utter despair to the distraught mother. Her tears streamed uncontrollably, like a relentless downpour. She profusely apologized, vowing it wouldn't recur. She accepted full responsibility. She lamented her failure to sway her spouse. She offered herself completely to the headmaster's will, be it as a menial or a bondsman. She implored him desperately to grant her husband reprieve. Then Instructor Bic intervened, delivering a brutal kick to her face. He was enraged, questioning her audacity to seek their trust. After all, she had already committed a treacherous act against them. He would not harbor ungrateful parasites within their haven. The elder urged Beck to restrain his fury. Given her forthright confession, divulging her husband's secrets, he granted her a final opportunity. This was her last chance for redemption. He tossed her a blade, commanding her to eliminate the cuckoo. Only then would she regain her place in his kin. Naturally, she couldn't bring herself to slay her spouse. Defying him, the patriarch swiftly invoked her daughter, leaving Yangju with a dire ultimatum. She had to summon her courage and end her husband's existence. Clutching the dagger, her husband offered a final glance, urging her to proceed. He imparted a hushed message solely for her ears. With that, she extinguished her beloved's life. The wicked old man embraced her, formally welcoming her into his community. The following day, the community assembled. Each one conveyed their condolences. They mourned the loss of their kin. The elder fabricated a tale. He informed the townspeople that the deceased valiantly battled the creatures. He ultimately perished, while his spouse lost her arm. Owing to their sacrifice, the village remained secure. With feigned grief, he expressed deep sorrow and regret. He lamented the tragic demise of their compatriot. Predictably, the crowd rallied behind the leader. They absolved him of responsibility. The deceitful elder was truly exceptional. He manipulated their opinions, regaining their confidence through fabricated empathy. The wretch who dehumanized her husband offered insincere condolences with a floral tribute. Yet, the most repugnant individual present was her. The entire charade was her orchestration. Recollections of her husband's demise brought on nausea. The memory of his murder made her stomach churn. Avarice had led to her spouse's death. Suicide was beyond her. Guilt consumed her. Her daughter's innocence prevented self-destruction. Yonghai clung to principle since her father's passing. Forgiveness was impossible, death preferable. Yet a task remained. Inaction would jeopardize Yonghai's well-being. A fate worse than Minsu's awaited her daughter. Resolve hardened within her. Time was inconsequential. Yonghai's safety and Minsu's vengeance demanded retribution. She would pay any price, overcome any obstacle. The reminiscence concluded. The scene shifted to a hospital. Trial number 28 commenced. A breakthrough emerged. Jutbok exhibited unique characteristics. The second trial provided further insights. He administered a tainted blood sample from her transformed digit to a rodent. A mere 35 seconds elapsed before the rat underwent a metamorphosis. Conversely, he introduced blood from another region of her anatomy into a separate rat, extracted from a different area of her physique. The result was null. He employed diverse methodologies in supplementary examinations. The origin of her transformation remained elusive. Yet, a revelation emerged. He detected a membrane-like structure at the extremity of the altered appendage. This peculiar barrier appeared to confine the contagion, preventing its systemic dissemination. Further scrutiny necessitated more time. Chuck Box might possess a genetic defense against the pestilence, or perhaps complete immunity. Abruptly, Chuck Box lets out a sneeze. The sudden sound startles the physician. His intense focus is shattered. A string of mucus dangles from the adorable child's nose. And now, she surpassed her prior record for the most extended nasal drip. The doctor experiences a wave of discomfort. He presents her with a tissue to cleanse her face. The young girl inquires if she's destined to become a beast. She had unintentionally overheard his conversation the previous evening. The physician seems unsure how to provide solace. He attempts reassurance, urging her not to fret. Although challenging a solution must exist, he guarantees her safety. Last night's discussion needn't cause her concern. The doctor ponders internally, questioning the effectiveness of his consolation. Her tears would greatly displease him. Unexpectedly, the child remains unperturbed. She rejoices in the prospect of possessing her mother's strength. Upon transforming into a creature, she yearned to become a colossal beast, to safeguard her parents. The mere notion of immense power, shielding her kin and earning accolades filled her with pride. However, she envisioned herself as a magnificent heroine. The doctor's perspective differed greatly. He perceived only a vacant, monstrous shell. Subconsciously, she longed for her mother and father, offering sustenance with her petite, deformed appendages. Abruptly, the ward's entrance creaked open, revealing Yangzhou. She declared their preparedness. Chukbok inquired about her parents' whereabouts. Yangzhou gently caressed the child's head, assuring her of their imminent return. She proposed a game with hostages. The scene shifted outdoors. Yangyi is seen with a companion. Her pal inquires about the principal's whereabouts. Yangyi gestures towards the cellar. She suggests he's likely in the newcomers section below. Descending into the basement, we find the principal and Beck. The elder, trailed by the pair, is showering them with praise. He expresses delight at their decision to remain. Gumdal responds with comparable appreciation. Gumdal expresses curiosity about the area. He remarks on the unexpected existence of such a place in the basement. The elder clarifies that it serves as a sanctuary. It's utilized during times of peril. The elder then addresses the larger man. He inquires if Yangju visited him at the hospital on their arrival. The large man readily affirms. The elder poses a subsequent question. He asks about the content of their conversation, which the man says was extensive. He recounts her praising the village's merits. She spoke highly of its inhabitants. She attributed the credit to the principal for ensuring the village's seamless operation. Just as Gomdal concludes his remarks, the elder emits a chuckle, which rapidly escalates into boisterous laughter. When Hera inquires about the unsettling man's mirth, Beck replies, finding Gomdal's fabricated tale rather amusing. Now that Gomdal and Hera are ostensibly kin, Beck deems their deception unacceptable. Their blatant lies are infuriating. Beck contemplates eliminating them. The patriarch desires the duo's presence in the village, recognizing their invaluable contributions. Yet, reluctantly, he acknowledges they pose a potential danger to the community. As outsiders, their loyalty is questionable. Hera proposes their departure. The elder swiftly refutes the need, suggesting an alternative path to kinship. True familial bonds could be forged. He vows to reunite them with their child. The scene shifts beyond the village borders. Pandemonium erupts. The populace descends into utter chaos. Yangju directs the crimson-clad individuals. They forcibly subdue the frantic crowd. Her ultimatum is stark. Their lives depend on obedience. They must heed her command and evacuate immediately. Witnessing her mother's insurrection, her daughter is utterly bewildered. This old codger was privy to the impending uprising. He foresaw the rebellion's unfolding. Aware of Yangju's meticulous preparations, he anticipated the revolt. He observed her sway over the duo at the medical facility. He witnessed her manipulation within the hospital walls. Even her scheme to imperil his kin was known to him. Yet he remained a passive observer. The unfolding events presented an advantage. He could expose the traitors within his ranks. He intended to purge the disloyal elements. Those deemed valuable could replenish his ranks. Let the creatures feast on the remnants. He relishes the thought of her despair, her shattered hope, when she realizes her struggles were in vain. Meanwhile, our heroes confront a repulsive beast. Its multiple tongues writhe and lash, forcing our duo to evade its relentless strikes. Gombo wields Yangju's bestowed weapon, but the monstrous adversary is colossal. The armament proves insufficient. Retreat becomes imperative. He urges Hera back, yet she remains unyielding. She lunges forward, defiant, severing the viscous appendages. They flail wildly, grasping for her. Having cleaved the tongues, she aims for the abhorrent creature's head. The beast detects movement behind it, merely a deceptive scarf, a mere diversionary tactic. Shiare swiftly covers the creature's face with her jacket, exploiting its momentary confusion. Shiare decapitates the beast. Though successful in severing the head, her blow is slightly off target. The monster sheds its outer layer. This dramatic unveiling is short-lived. The creature is swiftly dispatched with an axe to the head. Shiare effortlessly hurls the weapon. Elsewhere, Yangju's uprising escalates, terrorizing the villagers. She wounds the physician, blood spraying forth. Chuckbuck appears unfazed by the violence, apparently instructed to feign fear at the doctor's injury. She hastily adopts a terrified expression. A villager confronts Yangju, expressing his contempt. He resents her defiance of the leader, who provided them with a prosperous existence. Meanwhile, Yangju had braced herself for the inevitable backlash. Her response was icy and detached. The villagers, initially eager to retaliate, found their resolve crumbling, weapons clattering to the ground. Relief washed over her. The damage could be mitigated. At least the losses could be minimized. Escorting the villagers to safety was paramount. The abandoned weaponry could prove useful. Dispatching the pair with the headmaster seemed prudent. Without their intervention, the elder might have vanished unscathed. A riot could have erupted in the ensuing chaos. Yet, the cunning elder might have anticipated everything. Yangju remained vigilant, refusing to lower her guard. Then the unexpected occurred. Yangi materialized, the infant cradled in her arms, a pistol gripped in her hand. A gunshot shattered the tense silence, demanding attention. The weapon's muzzle now targeted her mother, and orders her to release the captives. Her mother is not only stunned, but the villagers are equally baffled by Yangi's firearm. Yangi appears to be under the headmaster's sway. He seemingly forewarned her, claiming her mother would incite an uprising. He armed her for this specific scenario. As Younghee brandishes the weapon, her mother advances towards her. Her companions urgently caution against approaching, citing the imminent danger. But Yang's son maintains her measured, intentional pace, calmly urging her daughter's composure. Yonki, however, is plagued by unanswered questions. She initiates the dialogue by inquiring about her mother's reasons for detaining the villagers and how she could possibly endanger the physician. Her mother attempts to disarm her, but her daughter's perception is warped by the headmaster's dubious methods. She harbors the conviction that her mother should have perished, not her father. Overwhelmed by panic and bewilderment, she impulsively directs the firearm at Chuckbuck's head. She unleashes a volley of shots at the crimson-clad figures. She hastily sprints towards the cellar entrance, believing the headmaster is her sole remaining kin. She must heed his instructions and reach him. The perspective shifts to our matriarch. We observe Dion's perspiring visage, a captive. She's divulging the clandestine route to the settlement. Dion trembles with anxiety as she witnesses her subordinate's demise. Glancing back at our mama, she discerns her fatigue. Dion briefly contemplates an escape attempt. Mama, however, deciphers Dion's expression and inquires about her motives. Terror grips Dion, sending shivers down her spine. She swiftly redirects the discussion, observing that Mama appears fatigued, and their journey isn't over yet. Abruptly, a resounding crash captures their attention. It's Rin, alongside her colossal beast companion. Rin glares at Mama, vengeance burning in her eyes. Dion feels both relief wash over her and astonishment at her sister's survival. She'd assumed Rin was 6 feet under. Rin forgoes pleasantries. She curtly orders Dion to step aside, lest she become collateral damage. Rin commands her ferocious hound, Baksun, to attack. The beast charges at Mama. Dion flees with utmost haste. Mama braces for the onslaught. Before the clash unfolds, the scene shifts back to Yongi, who is sprinting, Chuck Bak cradled in her arms, pursued by her mother and crimson-clad figures. Her mother urgently warned. The depths held perilous dangers. Yet again, the daughter menaced her mother with a firearm. The girl vehemently disowned such a maternal figure. Her sole desire, severing maternal ties. The headmaster and villagers constituted her true kin. Little Chuck Box interjected, irritation evident. Yongi's cruelty towards her mother was unacceptable. Jukbok empathized with the mother's plight, overwhelmed by sorrow. Witnessing such venomous words, Jukbaka's words resonated with Yongi. Her grip on the weapon faltered. Her mother's remorseful apology followed, laden with genuine regret for her absence during her daughter's time of need. She believed it was for her daughter's betterment. Regret consumes her. She sees herself as a deficient parent, one who neglected her child's needs. She comforts her offspring, dismissing the physician's actions as harmless theatrics. It was merely a spectacle, the blood an illusion. She would never intentionally inflict pain upon her kin. Her sole desire is her daughter's unwavering faith. The mother goes so far as to assert that her daughter's prior morbid pronouncements are inconsequential. The death wish doesn't faze her, but for the final time, she implores her daughter to believe in her flawed self. Overwhelmed by emotion, the daughter succumbs to tears. Eventually, she expresses remorse for her previous harshness. Suddenly, a monstrous entity descends. Before any response is possible, it seizes both the youth and the hapless Chuck Buck. Maternal instinct propels her into action. Witnessing her daughter's peril, she reacts instantly, but the creature swiftly retreats. Having secured its objective, Yangzhou, consumed by rage, immediately commands her squad to summon reinforcements. Her fury burns at the elder's premeditated scheme. He orchestrated her daughter's abduction. As the beast spirits the girls away, Jukbok observes others engaging the monstrosities. Her gaze is captivated by Hera and Gombel battling these creatures. She calls out to the pair. Both turn. Hera's expression instantly darkens. She spots the beast clutching Chuck Buck. Hera's wrath ignites. A single stroke fells the monster before her. Before Chuck Buck can be freed, the creature makes its escape. Following a short flight, the beast halts, releasing both captives. Young-hee regains her composure then. Hears the headmaster's voice. He commends her for evading the betrayers and for delivering the infant to him. He acknowledges her arduous journey, but reassures her of her exemplary performance. The elder pledges his family's unwavering protection. His kin will safeguard her henceforth. He then directs his focus towards Chuck Buck. However, just then, as the repulsive man extends his hand to touch Chuck Buck, he abruptly halts, observing Yang's firm grip on the child. She refuses to relinquish the babe. Intrigued and somewhat irritated, he inquires about her reluctance. Yong remains momentarily speechless. She finally breaks her silence, confessing her long-held suspicions regarding the unexplained disappearances of beloved villagers and the expulsion of others deemed undesirable. The headmaster's deceptive pronouncements. Now, she grasps the unsettling reality. She recounted their monstrous journey, pointing out familiar visages among the creatures below, faces she'd encountered before, villagers who had departed. A horrifying realization dawned. Those monsters were former neighbors. Yong, utterly transfigured, he remembered the village's vital souls, now reduced to mindless beasts. As understanding struck her, Beck's forceful stomp aimed to silence her. Her defiance against the leader's wisdom infuriated him. He questioned, had she forgotten his nurturing hand in her youth? He resented appearing unappreciative of her blessings, but the monstrous fate of their kin remained incomprehensible. Beck's brutal kick to her abdomen rendered her unconscious. The imposing figure loomed over her, issuing a stark admonition. Further insolence. Her demise is imminent. The elder intervenes, urging instructor Beck's composure. He addresses Young-hee with chilling indifference. He reminds her this concept might elude her juvenile comprehension, but universal happiness is a fallacy. The world segregates the powerful and the feeble. Survival of the fittest reigns supreme. All is permissible in the pursuit of self-preservation. The weak await their inevitable end, while the strong seize all they possess. Survival for the weak hinges on the strong's protection. Precisely like him and his monstrous entourage, the elder believes with age. Young he will ultimately grasp this truth. Then, Chiolsu interjects. Without a trace of uncertainty, she denounces him as a malevolent elder. She swiftly removes the bandage from her tainted finger, brandishing it aloft to emphasize her point. She proclaims those who induce tears are wicked, and if their cruelty persists, she'll report everyone to her folks. Her melodramatic outburst captivates the crowd. Eruptions of laughter follow. The tiny girl's bold words bring amusement. Their mirth irritates the little one, and Jutbok fumes at their lack of seriousness. She inhales deeply, her tummy expanding. A piercing shriek erupts. She cries out for Mama and Papa. The elder chuckles at her desperate plea. They deem her endearing and valiant. She embodies hope amidst despair. Even in dire straits, she seeks solace. Her innocence is so profound, the geezer yearns to obliterate her. As the monstrous man advances, Chuck Buck succumbs to terror. Her wails for her mother echoed instinctively. Her cries reached a deafening crescendo. Her pleas for rescue were finally answered. The vile man found himself abruptly struck by a launched missile. The projectile? Rin's severed head. Instructor Bayak reflexively grabbed for his firearm. Before he could discharge it, a hurtling axe intervened. His weapon splintered in two. Pandemonium ensued as nearby monsters went berserk. They questioned who dared defile their leader. The answer swiftly materialized. Their mother stood defiantly opposite them. PRA was equally astonished and infuriated. The women were a formidable duo. Fueling their rage was the audacity of harming Chuck Buck, their beloved daughter. Both mothers. Their deafening roar was a promise of annihilation. Meanwhile, Diane sought solace in a secluded nook. Trembling seized her, fear consuming her. Shock paralyzed her, unable to process how their mother had not only vanquished Rin's companion, but had also claimed Rin's life. Back in the fray, the creatures noticed their mother's luminous eyes. Recognition dawned swiftly upon them. This was the beast their progenitor had sought. Her presence inside baffled them. Sentinels were posted at the entrance. Her arrival implied their demise. Chuck Buck enthusiastically greeted his mother. Relief washed over Mama, seeing her daughter unharmed. Yet worry for Gumdal lingered. Concurrently, Hera observed the monstrous matriarch's metamorphosis. 3 appendages now adorned her form. Something sprouted from her tentacles. An unfamiliar presence emerges. This location solidifies Hera's conviction that this woman poses a genuine danger. A menace to Chuck Buck for reasons unknown. Apprehension grips the headmaster. He recognizes the golden-eyed woman. The creature his father, the founder, tirelessly sought. A monster cautiously inquires about the headmaster's well-being. His distress is palpable. Rin's decapitated head, a profound humiliation. The headmaster abruptly issues commands. Seize the golden-eyed woman, at any cost. Eliminate Hera. Terror paralyzes Yongi. She trembles violently. Escape now, Chuck Buck, while you can. Seize this fleeting opportunity. Undeterred, Chuck Buck remains defiant. Her mothers possess insurmountable strength, an unshakable certainty. Instructor Beck and a horde of creatures closed in on Hera. Simultaneously, others lunged at Mama Yon. Overwhelmed by dread, she yearned to escape to safety. Chuck Buck, however, remained serene, her faith in her mother unwavering. Chuck Buck's confidence was well-founded. The monsters were oblivious to their impending doom. Mama's tentacles lashed out with lightning speed. Needles pierced the creatures instantaneously. Shrieks of torment filled the air. The venom took hold, inflicting excruciating pain. Mama moved with graceful precision. Her tentacles flailed and stabbed with deadly accuracy. The monsters were reduced to gore, their fate sealed. The principal was paralyzed, incredulous at the sight before him. She obliterated them effortlessly, a display of sheer power. In the meantime, a monster unleashed a volley of projectiles upon Hera. But our heroine moves with lightning speed. They're utterly oblivious to the unfolding chaos. One unfortunate soul meets a gruesome end via axe. RA materializes before Instructor Bayak. She swiftly eliminates the beast at Bayak's side. Then, she counters Bach's assault, inflicting a grievous wound across his torso. Simultaneously, Chukbuk rushes to her mother, embracing her tightly. The little one, with unwavering confidence and beaming pride, declares she shed no tears during their separation. Overwhelmed, the mother bursts into tears. Mother and daughter weep openly, consumed by the ache of longing. Witnessing this poignant reunion, Jong-hee is lost in introspection. Memories of her harsh words to her mother surface. She's bewildered by her past cruelty. Remorse washes over her. She dissolves into tears, apologizing profusely to her mother. Meanwhile, the ancient geezer is losing his grip on sanity. With the creatures vanquished, he appears to be the next victim. Hera looms ominously behind him. Having dispatched Instructor Bayak, Alutaloha emanates from Hera, inducing a cold sweat in the elder. He bellows, summoning the founder. His desperate cries attempt to rouse him. But as Hera raises her axe to silence him, her motion abruptly ceases. A grotesque entity emerges from the old man's maw, inquiring why it was summoned. A chill runs down Hera's spine as she comprehends that this unsettling codger harbored a monstrosity within. Founder, it utters menacingly. Hera doesn't hesitate. With a swift swing, she aims to obliterate the beast. This creature, however, promises to be a formidable adversary. As anticipated, it effortlessly halts the axe with its bare hands. As payback, it sprouts razor-sharp projectiles from its hand and hurls them at Hera. She swiftly leaps out of harm's way. Meanwhile, the elder finally expels the founder from his throat. The creature quickly identifies Mama and Chukbuk as its father's long-sought targets. It appears delighted to have its quarry directly before it. The old man abruptly apologizes for summoning the founder, but his words are cut short. The founder silences him with a swift slice, severing his ear. The monster continues its grotesque growth, expanding in size. Sharp appendages erupt from its back. It unleashes a barrage of these sharp objects in all directions. Hera shields Yong-hee with her body, diving to the ground. Monster Mama Safegwas Chukbuk. Upon impact, the projectiles demolish their surroundings. It becomes evident the fiend's true target was the ceiling lights all along. The area is suddenly plunged into complete darkness. Only the spot occupied by Mama and Chukbuk remains illuminated. As Chukbuk recovers from the assault, Mama detects something amiss. Reacting instinctively, she unleashes her tentacles in defense. She quickly discerns that it's only Hera and another young girl. To her relief, Hera intercepts the tentacle before it impales Yong-hee. Menacing voices abruptly resonate around them. Both mothers become instantly vigilant. They stand back to back, surveying their surroundings. Mama doubts her ability to fight, while simultaneously safeguarding Chukbuk. Hera proposes a direct escape to the exit. Their priority is the children's safety. After entrusting the children to Gumdal, she can confront the creature. A surprise attack injures Mama before they can react, grasping the enemy's tentacles to impede its progress. She commands Hera to flee with the children. The creature unleashes a ferocious counterattack. Hera wisely chooses to flee. Yong-hee, clutching Chukbuk, follows close behind. They abandon Mama to confront the colossal beast, a formidable and menacing adversary. Chukbuk becomes frantic, witnessing her mother's peril. But Hera spots something even more alarming. Instructor Bayak has vanished. The implication is clear. He survives, and more ominously, he's right behind her. Before Hera can respond, he unleashes a rapid series of slashes. She barely has a moment to defend herself. Terror grips both girls and Yong. He succumbs to fear and runs. Chukbuk, however, screams for her to be put down, refusing to show cowardice. The vile Bayak doesn't hesitate. With deft maneuvers, he swiftly immobilizes Hera, taunting her relentlessly. He inquires about her knowledge of Filipino martial arts. He brags about his expertise, honed during his tenure as a police officer there. He confesses admiration for her prior agility and unique techniques. Now, with the power dynamics shifted, he wonders how she will extricate herself. Meanwhile, young Yong-hee flees with Chukbuk cradled in her arms. The unsettling elder intercepts her path, obstructing her escape. But before he can act, Yong-hee's mother, Yong-ju, appears unexpectedly, felled the old man with a single blow to the head. As Yong-ju reprimands the old scoundrel for menacing her daughter, Yong-hee bursts into tears, overcome with relief at her mother's intervention. The mother then discards the stick and embraces her daughter tightly. Yong reacts swiftly. He offers heartfelt apologies, vowing to choose kinder words. Meanwhile, poor Chuckbuck is trapped in the affectionate embrace, squeezed between mother and daughter. Suddenly, Gomdal and crimson-clad figures appear. Chuckbuck cries out, frantic, fearing for his mother's safety. Disturbing sounds of violence erupt in the distance. Banging, thudding, and splattering resonate. The source, Mama. The monstrous villain has impaled her repeatedly. Her body is riddled with wounds. Chuckbuck is aghast. Even the red-robed men are stunned. They gaze upon the horrifying sight of Monster Mama. They resolve to eliminate her. Weapons are raised, ready to fire. But before they can act, Gomdal intervenes. He vehemently proclaimed her as his spouse. Gomdal swiftly scooped up his wife. But his escape was thwarted. The monstrous entity materialized behind him. Its imposing presence petrified Gomdal. He stood frozen in terror. Chuckbuck, with a tiny finger accusingly pointed, denounced the creature as malevolent. Gomdal fled with utmost haste. Crimson-clad figures unleashed a volley of bullets. Each projectile found its mark. Yet, the behemoth remained impervious. Like an invulnerable beast, impervious to harm. The monster effortlessly deflected the assault and swiftly retaliated, impaling a robed figure. Its tentacle pierced his abdomen. Others frantically attempted to extract the appendage. Their efforts were in vain. The monster drained the unfortunate soul's lifeblood, rendering him unconscious and ashen-faced on the earth. The beast savors the freshly drawn lifeblood. Its hunger satiated, it yearns for more, lashing out with tentacles at the remaining cloaked figures. Each hapless soul is impaled and drained. Their empty husks litter the ground. With no more life essence to consume, the creature unleashes a terrifying roar. It commands the surrender of Mama and Chuckbuck. Compliance, it promises, will bring forth a marvel. Upon hearing this ultimatum, a veiled woman seizes young Chuckbuck. She offers him to the monstrous entity. As commanded, she vows to deliver Mama as well. She implores the beast to honor its pledge and spare the villagers, as it once did. But the creature sees no value in human life. Its hand pierces the woman's abdomen. A display of its fury at the destruction wrought upon the settlement, all due to their insatiable avarice. He reminisces about bestowing upon them opulence and sanctuary, sustenance. Every necessity was provided. Thus, he believes he possesses the authority to determine the fate of his nurtured charges. Terror grips everyone, uncertain how to confront this abomination. Meanwhile, Mama remains prostrate, her form battered and contused. Yet, she's confident that imminently she can vanquish the creature yonder. Hera continues to grapple with the scoundrel. After a brief exchange, they resume their fierce struggle. As for Monster Mama, she rejoins the fray. She swiftly hurls Chuckbuck away from the beast. Gomdal deftly intercepts her midair. With Chuckbuck safeguarded, Mama prepares to engage the monster. She unleashes a barrage of venomous projectiles. The creature confronts them directly. It brags about its insensitivity to pain. Its lack of sensation renders it immune to suffering. He sees their efforts as futile. But the mother asserts that everlasting torment awaits this abomination. The beast lashes out with its appendages. A brutal strike leaves her critically wounded. Meanwhile, Hera and the villain remain engaged in a ferocious struggle. Apparently, the adversary holds the advantage in this confrontation. Simultaneously, the remaining villagers unleash a barrage of gunfire. The bullets inflict no discernible harm. The beast appears impervious to damage. However, Yangzhou rejects a life of subservience. She denounces the degradation of her kin. She yearns for a community where a child can thrive, safe and sound, shielded from the monstrous threat. The creature merely scoffs at her plea. Mama elevates her combat prowess. A volley of toxic needles assaults the beast. She readies her ultimate strike. Before witnessing the battle's conclusion, Hera abandons her playful engagement. Her patience with her adversary has waned. She intends to definitively settle the score. Unexpectedly, Hera's brutal slap blindsides the wretch. He's momentarily sightless. Capitalizing on the opening, she commandeers the fool's own armament. A relentless onslaught of attacks ensues. The colossal monster perceives his fracturing form. The damage was unforeseen. It appears Mama Monster's strategy was premeditated. He comprehends the gravity of his predicament. He bolts at full speed. He desperately widens the gap between himself and his pursuer. Meanwhile, Hera, has vanquished her foe. Bach and the beast roar in astonishment. They unleash their full might before the women. Ultimately, both women triumph as Mama impales the wretch. With her tendrils, Hera delivers a crushing final blow to Byx's face, rendering him unconscious. However, the other monster persists. Despite a scorching drill piercing its chest, it endures. It swiftly retaliates, compelling Mama to briefly withdraw. The creature undergoes a metamorphosis, becoming a pulsating sphere of spines. But Mama remains undeterred. She readies her venomous spear, fashioned from her own hand, and demolishes the creature like a fragile fruit. Moments later, crimson-clad figures and monsters lay strewn across the battlefield, lifeless. The despicable elder remains breathing. Concealed behind a vehicle, he clenches his jaw, reflecting on his unwavering dedication to this settlement. This is the gratitude he receives. He provided sustenance and sanctuary, and this is his recompense? As he wallows in self-pity, a forceful smack lands upon his backside, courtesy of the small powerhouse. He whirls around to find Gomdal and Chuck Buck standing behind him. In the aftermath, the surviving villagers encircle the wretched old man as he pleads for mercy, insisting his actions were for the community's benefit. His pleas might sway some, but not Yangju and her child. Yangju raises her weapon, aiming directly at the scoundrel's head. A bullet pierces his skull, silencing him forever, guaranteeing his descent into the abyss before any other soul. Thus, the ordeal concludes. Yangju succumbs to utter fatigue. Yet, she has avenged her beloved spouse. A wave of serenity and contentment washes over her in the aftermath. The hamlet undergoes a dramatic transformation in mere days. The remains of the headmaster and the monstrous entities are eradicated. A solemn tribute honors the departed. All concur to barricade every access point to the subterranean lair and maintain vigilance for a time. Nevertheless, a new predicament arises. Instructor Byok's corpse remains elusive. Should Byok persist, the consequences are unknown. With the site's clandestine and genuine essence unveiled, the majority of inhabitants gather their provisions and depart. The physician expresses his displeasure. They ought to have remained and offered mutual support. Instead, they opted for hasty retreat. Later, within the medical facility, the doctor endeavors to inject Hera's muscle tissue to administer a course of antibiotics. However, the woman declines, citing discomfort. It's ironically amusing she prefers battle scars, yet fears a simple needle prick. She departs the room. The physician summons the next individual. A provisional inoculation was formulated, halting the contagions spread amongst the wounded. Its impermanent nature necessitates frequent administration and carries certain adverse reactions. Otherwise, it remains efficacious. The collective survival can be attributed to the monstrous matriarch and her offspring. The doctor expressed astonishment at Chuck Buck's monstrous parentage. Their genetic makeup proved invaluable to the investigation. Concurrently, Yangzhou convalesces post-operation. Awakening is her sole remaining hurdle. The physician anticipates her joyous reaction upon seeing the settlement. He envisions her tearful reunion with her daughter. With the village liberated, he eagerly awaits her awakening. Despite recounting everyone else's experiences, he's grappling with weighty matters, things he just can't comprehend. The link between Chuck Buck and her monstrous mother is bewildering him. His findings are utterly unforeseen. The narrative shifts to a prior outdoor incident. Creatures dominate the landscape. A colossal mutant pursues the scent of fresh human blood. The trail leads to a battered instructor by Ek. He's bruised and bloodied. He's trapped in a horrifying predicament. His weapon is pathetic. A gigantic mutated monster confronts him. Adding to his woes, he's hemorrhaging. The tantalizing aroma of blood further enrages the beast. Suddenly, something strikes the monster's head. The yellow-eyed man felled the creature, the one they all call Father. He immediately demands information from Beck. Within moments, Beck recounts the recent tragedy. He informs the golden-eyed man of the village's downfall. Its demise followed the leader and patriarch's passing, having disgraced and failed his father. Beck believes he's unworthy of being called a son, yet he's indebted to his father for granting life to all. When hope seemed lost, despite losing their cherished village, a gift from their father, he implores his father for powers like his kin. He yearns to avenge their suffering. He acknowledges his audacious request, but clings to a glimmer of hope. The one-eyed man swiftly executes Beck. To this ruthless being, Beck is mere refuse. After eliminating the power-hungry wretch, the golden-eyed man releases a heavy sigh. He laments entrusting the responsibility of Hope Village to such fools. Hope Village. After enduring countless losses, he's back to square one. His primary focus now, their mother's safety. She's become significantly more formidable. He feels the urgency, time is of the essence. The moment these words leave his lips, a lurking figure behind the staircase catches his eye. This individual fears further involvement will lead to unnecessary casualties. Hasty actions could prove fatal. A measured approach is paramount. The one-eyed man retorts swiftly. He's already devised a strategy. This time he'll handle it personally. However, the concealed individual cautions, the perils are substantial. The patriarch stresses his lack of alternatives. He yearns for assistance. He trusts his son. Jack will provide aid. Jack emerges from the shadows. He pledges unwavering support for his father. The one-eyed man contemplates in silence. If he possessed his complete form, all would be within his grasp. His thoughts drifted to the past. His body was torn asunder. Assaulting the expectant mother proved disastrous. That moment marked his corporeal loss. The newborn held the key to his restoration. Chuck Buck remained impervious to the radiant light. The one-eyed fiend believed she possessed the crucial essence. Obtaining her would be a pivotal victory. His scheme would be partially fulfilled. Thus, Chuck Buck's capture became paramount. 2 months elapsed since the village's devastation. A semblance of normalcy returned. Optimism filled the village anew. Chuck Buck, charming in her fresh attire, appeared. Her parents were deeply touched by her appearance. The child bestowed a gentle kiss upon her mother's cheek. Her father playfully demanded his own. Chuck Buck then departs for her lessons. Later, she grapples with her schoolwork. Finally, she arrives at a correct solution. Her teacher rewards her with an approving touch. However, Yongi faces greater challenges. The teacher, also her mother, reprimands her. A heated exchange ensues between them. Meanwhile, Chuck Buck quietly completes every problem. Observing Chuck Buck's diligence, the teacher concludes the lesson. Both girls seek a breath of fresh air outside. Yangju, conversely, opts to remain indoors. The two girls depart, relishing their shared amusement. Their playful antics continue outdoors. During their play, Chuck Buck encounters villagers. Her presence irritates them. Recognizing her monstrous parentage, they demand her immediate departure. Her peculiar digit is common knowledge. Concealed beneath these bandages, they offer condescending, disdainful glances, as if she's the most repulsive being imaginable. The frightened girl flees, while the two harpies continue their ridicule. Hera arrives just then, and suddenly, the earlier loudmouths are struck with fear. They hastily attempt a greeting, feigning innocence, but Hera won't let them off so easily. She sharply rebukes them, commanding them to prostrate themselves. One hopes their arrogance is finally shattered. Daybreak approaches, and elsewhere, poor Chuck Buck sits solemnly. Her father approaches the melancholic girl, inquiring about her distress. Chuck Buck yearns for home. Her father cautions against the perils of return. Malevolent creatures know their dwelling's location. A return journey would be perilous. But she notes that while the beasts are frightening, those tormenting her mother are more wicked. Some individuals here are compassionate. Others exhibit comparable cruelty. She professes her mother's virtuous nature to her father, a benevolent and affectionate matriarch devoted to her kin. But malicious gossip about her mother deeply wounds her. It inflicts significant emotional distress. Her father consoles her with a tender nod. He assures her that improvement is always attainable. He elucidates that fear stems from the unknown. If her mother's true character can be revealed, the villager's apprehension will transform into affection. Later, as Mama prepares to gather provisions and sustenance for the community, she is met with ambivalent reactions. Some admire her selfless endeavors. Yet, resentment lingers in others. They stubbornly perceive her as a monstrous being. Fortunately, not all her detractors are heartless. Compassionate souls offer unwavering support. Their belief in her shines through. Despite this, anxiety gnaws at the weary mother. Harsh whispers and cruel judgments wound her deeply. As apprehension takes hold, her daughter's voice rings out. A resounding declaration fills the air. "My mama is the kindest soul," she proclaims. "She treats me with boundless affection." Gumdell effusively expresses his adoration. His love for Mama knows no bounds. Unexpected price painetes and mamas kicks crimson. The sudden spotlight overwhelms her. Chuck's charisma casts a potent spell. A palpable shift occurs. Positivity permeates the atmosphere. Joy and optimism blossom unexpectedly. Meanwhile, Hera's still occupied, handling those two boisterous girls. They desperately needed a lesson in proper etiquette. The scene shifts. We meet a duo who just vanquished a beast. They utterly obliterated its head. Victorious, they set their sights on Hope Village. Whispers of the yellow-eyed monster have reached them. He's yearning to personally eliminate it. We return to Chuck Buck. She gleefully displays her new plush bear. Her parents lovingly crafted it for her. It's a token of their appreciation, a reward for her exemplary behavior. Hera, however, remains unimpressed. She frankly declares it less than adorable. She boasts she could create a superior one. Unperturbed, Chuck Buck reveals the toy remains nameless. She inquires about Hera's suggestions. Hera, ever direct. She pauses, lost in contemplation. Finally, she proposes the name Soa. It symbolizes beauty and prosperity, she explains. Upon hearing the name, Chuck Buck's memory stirs. A vision emerges. Hera, in a semi-conscious state, subconsciously murmured the name Soa. Chuck Buck beams, expressing her fondness for the name. She vows to cherish the toy. Hera emphasizes the name's significance to her. Before Chuck Buck can inquire further, Yomi bursts in. New arrivals have come to the village, he declares. Her mother is imperiled and requires assistance, she exclaims. The scene transitions to the village square. Villagers congregate outside, drawn by a clamor emanating from the office. The imposing man from earlier exhibits elation at Yangju's self-reliance. Despite her limitations, Yangju attempts to express gratitude. Her voice, overly loud, causes her to sputter. Just then, Hera arrived, and Yangju swiftly introduced the newcomers. Chunbai, the large man, was hard of hearing, forcing Yangju to shout for his benefit. Accompanying him was his daughter, Yu Young. For a brief instant, a romantic connection was presumed, but that proved incorrect. Yangju declared Hera their ultimate asset, and at her side the adorable Chuck Buck. Little Hera, full of charm, sensed Yu Young's disdainful gaze. Perplexed by the persistent staring, Hera returned a more intense glare. Yu Young, humbled, promptly averted her eyes. Meanwhile, the imposing man was captivated by the quiet child. He jotted her name in his notepad, mishearing it as Chubby Chuck Buck. She cheerfully corrected him, but he misheard again, questioning if she'd said, Chow Chow. Chuck Buck provided another correction. Yet, the hulking figure still calls her Chuckles. This time, Chuck Buck is genuinely irritated. She suspects the elder is deliberately teasing her. Pointing accusingly, she asserts her name is Chuck Buck. The large man swiftly grasps Chuck Buck's hand. Witnessing this, Hera seizes his collar. She's enraged by his presumptuous behavior. The behemoth hastily apologizes. Curiosity drove him. He'd heard tales of Chuck Buck's discolored digit. Intrigued, the giant poses a question. Inquisitively, he asks about a yellow-eyed beast. Hera anticipates the conversation's trajectory. She responds with a withering glare. Yangju interjects. He urges them to cease. He reminds them of the child's presence and implores composure. Hera whispers in the man's ear. She inquires about his intentions regarding the monster. Before he can reply, Gombel's arrival shatters the tense silence. He arrived inquiring about Chuck Buck's presence, specifically asking for her. The moment Chunbai turned, he was stunned to find Gumdal standing before him. Gumdal instantly recognized the man as his former leader. To grasp Chunbai and Gumdal's shared past, the scene cuts to a flashback. Gumdal is seen, easily thrashing opponents. He remains completely unfazed. Rival gang members succumb to panic. Knowing Gumdal is unstoppable, their weapons prove utterly useless. Gumdal's comrades are elated, vociferously supporting their dominant friend. But Gumdal swiftly commands his crew to plunder the adversaries. Before they flee, brandishing weapons, the entire gang charges the enemy. Chunbai, it turns out, once led that very squad. Prior to Gumdal's arrival, Chunbai is enjoying himself, needling Gumdal for his monstrous spouse. As the elder rambles on, his offspring, Yu Young, musters her bravery. tentatively inquiring if Gamdal harbors regrets. Gamdal, understandably bewildered, draws a blank. Yujuang clarifies, reminding him that his unorthodox union painted a target on his back for the flesh-eating clan. Their inevitable return for him is certain. He must shield his kin from impending peril. She probes whether he rues establishing a family. Gamdal falls silent, contemplative. Font recollection surface. Of their initial encounter, a vulnerable, monstrous matriarch fiercely safeguarding her newborn. The narrative rewinds nearly 6 years. Gamdal stealthily departs a gathering, seeking his monstrous mate. One day, Yujun inquires about his destination. He hastily fabricates a pretext. He announces a patrol, ensuring all is secure. Promising a swift return, he departs, leaving Yu Yung visibly irritated. Her father playfully needles her, suggesting Gamdal might have a secret rendezvous. This notion unsettles Yu Yung. Unknowingly, her suspicion is valid. Not a romantic tryst, but a visit to Monster Mama, accompanied by her offspring. Their connection is nascent. Monster Mama remains cautious, apprehensive. Gamdal allays her fears, offering only essential provisions. Discreetly, he deposits the supplies in the shade. Formula, garments, and blankets for the child. Gamdal departs, seemingly heading away. Instead of truly leaving, he conceals himself behind a wall, covertly observing Monster Mama's reaction. As anticipated, she's overwhelmed with joy. Every offering he presented, observing Monster Mama's elation from afar, filled Gamdal with unbridled joy. Her happiness was his own. Gradually, he spent increasing amounts of time in her company. Time flowed days into nights. Unknowingly, their connection deepened. Simultaneously, Chuck Buck matured. Gamdal suddenly recognized their newfound intimacy. It was a subconscious closeness that brought a flush to his cheeks. Meanwhile, the rival faction meticulously monitored Gamdal's every move. Returning to Monster Mama one day, Gamdal discovered the infant was afflicted with a fever. Panic-stricken, the behemoth frantically raced to procure medicine. Delay could prove fatal. Tardiness might mean bidding farewell to Chuck Buck. Desperation fueled his journey through the ravaged city. When his adversaries sprang their trap,